just giving so much love and respect to Junkfoot, rightfully so. So I'm just like, this is too wholesome. I'm not used to that. I don't know how to react.
I was like, are they trying to poach him?
Exactly.
Like, what is he? What's the master plan? Are we trying to bring Junkfoot to with Twisted Minds? What's going on?
I don't know. It's working. It's working.
That was great.
Yeah, but obviously both teams have been performing on the highest level all stage long, individual performances, team performance. Seeing them going head to head in the grand final again is just going to be so good. I'm excited. I'm so ready for this one. So are the teams and most importantly also our casters. So let's send it over to Mitch and Matt.
All right, gang, this is about as good as it gets. A battle of our elite teams and EMEA for that top seed heading into our mid-season championship. Now, Psycho earlier on said that he felt that Twisted Minds right now were unbeatable. That was before their matchup against Qadsiah. We learned that they still had some flaws that could be exploited, but it was a close game, and we know there's always a silver bullet for this team in the form of that hybrid map. Kings Row is where they have been dominant. Expect to see that surface at some point throughout the series unless Qadsiah try and steal it away from them.
These two teams have been neck and neck in EMEA. You know, the last even few weeks, like you're watching Qadsiah blow people out, you're watching Twisted Minds blow people out. You're like, man, it is tough to pick between these two teams. But yeah, I mean, obviously Qadsiah gets their number in a very close series the other day. We'll see if Twisted Minds can get on the bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it is going to come down to how they're feeling on the day. It's an old adage, but it definitely applies here. Twisted Minds warmed up, bit of a brawl there with Virtus Pro to get them to this particular game, and we start on Oasis, the same control map that we began the last series on. And if you remember, that's what we saw Hardy try things like the Reinhardt and the Sigma. Ryan is actually banned against Twisted Minds here.
Yeah, as you know, the Reinhardt ban is a rare one, right? Where Qadsiah, right? Twisted Minds the other day, Mitch, right? Weren't they trying to play like Sigma and they tried Reinhardt on this map specifically? I don't think either of those compositions I was too scared of if you're Qadsiah, but hey, you know what? Get that Ryan out. Maybe they're seeing something in, you know, scrims where they don't want to play against it.
I mean, last time I think we saw the Ramatra ban aimed at KSA, which is a very reasonable choice for Qadsiah on this kind of map. But this time, they're respecting the Ryan enough. But if you remember it, it was pretty heavily exploited by the Checkmate May play. We saw that happen on University, where the Ryan was obviously caught out on multiple occasions, and City Center was never really a factor. So interesting that that's being targeted now. They have some sort of level of respect for it, and maybe they just want to set themselves up. Ziad has happened to take a mirror. We've seen Ziad also on occasion pick the Orisa into the Ramatra to try and sort of you know, beat that out. Definitely an exciting prospect. And bear in mind, I mean, if you want to look back at this Qadsiah team map and their performance at Hangzhou, that was without Ziad. They had to play their tournament without him and had Tread instead. And yeah, they didn't exactly light the world on fire, but this team is now at full strength and in theory would be at full strength when we get to that mid-season championship. So a lot to be excited for from both these teams. It's Qadsiah, who basically dominated EMEA from the start, and Twisted Minds, who are coming alive just when it counts.
Yeah, and I'm not like Tread obviously played pretty well for Peps during this stage, but I think when you kind of compare him and Ziad, right? Ziad we kind of have up there as you know, maybe a top tank in EMEA at the moment, right? So a slight gap between those two with the Soj ban here coming through for Twisted Minds. That'll force Labda, right? Labda's been great on the Sojourn, forces him either onto the Freya or the Cassidy. It'll be the Freya here to open things up for Qadsiah. As Twisted Minds will play that Ram yet again.
No funny business this time from Twisted Minds. Just for Matra. Last time they took a fight here, it was the TPs that gave Qadsiah a pretty nice lead. This time, though, it's going to be a pause called. Just
well, this time we actually see them playing the Ram, where the other day they were playing the Sig here, right? And we know how that went. It was not great. Not ideal.
I think much of that depended on them winning the first fight, but if you take a fight on that part of the map, that coast area, Sigma feels a little bit claustrophobic. I don't think he has the room to work with. Ramatra, a little bit better, but already we saw Twisted Minds call and audible there to pull out of that fight. They didn't feel favored there, maybe not against the Diva. A little bit dangerous to take an engagement there. So that means Qadsiah get priority.
Pause. Yeah, a little tack pause first of the game. So
yeah, I'm sure.
We'll see. Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot to discuss. The lineup from Qadsiah probably very expected at this stage, though, from Twisted Minds. So they're going to play for the low ground here. That's just a result of them losing that early fight.
Nice
God,
move
Yubi
there.
almost got blown to smithereens as soon as they took that TP. That didn't work at all. Now at least TM, though, can flip the point first. They have that control. Now Qadsiah's style normally requires them to give up that point control and swoop in on some individuals later on. So it does mean that these rounds get pretty close.
Yeah, that's the Immortality Field out already, so you get that one out. Now I think it's time for Qadsiah to potentially up the pace.
Well, they try to, but Felix is kind of the engine room behind that burst of speed, and he's taken down very early by Quartz, who deals with Ziad alongside Funny Astro following that. So Qadsiah's it's an uphill battle sometimes with this D.Va composition. Now they also don't have, a great position to play from, being forced outside the map. So how do they crack this Ramatra, very defensive Ramatra Sim Cassidy setup?
Well, and we talked a little bit about it, but for, Qadsiah, right? They obviously come into that winter bracket final and they kind of do what they normally do. For Twisted Minds, we saw them play like the Rhine, all different types of stuff. It's like, realistically, there's no bracket reset, right? So it's like, you just need to win this game and that's all that matters. Like, maybe you end up kind of saving your best for this moment if you're TM.
Here's a continued rush down from Qadsiah. Quartz tries to answer it with a dead eye. See the bowler shot come in, and it doesn't end up bothering him because of the sound barrier laid out by Funny Astro, but it's a later one from Kellex. Qadsiah don't have good positioning. They're caught inside this room, but Twisted Minds are a little split, and KSA is ultimately isolated. Too much Twisted Minds preference, I guess, to play for the higher ground leaves the core of their team off in the side room to be left upon by this mobile D.Va comp.
Yes, this will be a point flip here for Qadsiah. I gotta say though, Mitch, the Cassidy from Quartz has looked quite good. And when you think about some of the other points remaining, right, a little bit more that like mid to short range, sight lines. I think the Cassidy could get better as this map goes on. So something to keep an eye on here for Twisted Minds as the Cassidy looks good early on. Let's see if they can get this Ram in position, get a good use of the Annihilation, right? A lot of mobility on both teams. So a lot of ways to kind of circumvent it.
Straight to the high ground is the attempt here. KSA, though, either knocked off or steps off. Either way, it's Labda finding Quartz very early on with a symmetrical wall in play. Is that Twisted Minds don't really have a good way to unleash this Cassidy damage. And now they're going to get staggered out. This should be Qadsiah getting close to evening up the game now with the bowler shot and a remake opportunity for Ziad in hand.
Oh, without a doubt, right? I mean, you get an early pick off there on a Quartz. It's like a TP. They use that sim wall. And now you see the TP here used by Yubi, just the amount of space this sim TP can cover. Funny Astro's gonna need to go, I was gonna say go huge with the beat, and never mind. The Bola just detonates everybody.
Ties them all together. All too easy for Lapta to send a couple of extra bolts in. Benefit from that explosive damage, and now we have an even game on our hands. Funny Astro, whose beat would have been critical in that fight, wasn't quite ready to let it go. So now they can combine it with the Annihilation, but there's always the question of how Qadsiah intend to take that high ground. Or maybe they force a fight on the point here. Air Matrix early, KSA moves away from that sphere of influence, and there's no remake opportunity there for Ziad, but Yubi's caught in the blast, uncharacteristically, and even with the sim wall in play, it might have been a little bit too slow to protect him. Either way, TM spend heavily on this fight. Win it out as Qadsiah get to 90.
Yeah, they get to 90 and they hold on to their sound barrier. A change up here with Landon now going over to the Kiri. So we're going to up the pace just a little bit as we'll see from Twisted Minds. How do you get a hold here, right? Sound barrier, you're going to have to like run away, kite this. They actually get aggressive. Maybe they can force this beat out early. That's exactly what they do.
Twisted Minds have to be happy with this, but they don't have a lot else to work with. They're kind of feigning a position of power here. Neither team with big ultimates left. It might be a sim wall for checkmate that could tip the scales in their favor. Ziad, though, has worked his way behind Twisted Minds, and Labda is on the middle of the palace in the center of the map. Tough to get eyes on here, especially now for someone like Quartz, who's limited in that longer range play, and there's a bowler shot ready to go for Labda again. He's developed this so quickly. This could be perfect. All players caught in there. Devastating. Simple caught out. The Immortality Field is not quite enough to keep them standing. Qadsiah, they come up with the goods just when it counts. KSA cleaned off the point quickly enough, and checkmate now zipping around to make sure no one is left standing from the Twisted Minds contingent. And Qadsiah can move the battle lines up, deny any real stall attempt from TM. It's Yubi with a tracer switch that likely comes a little too late. Funny Astro is able to touch down, but he does so dead. And that should be that. Quartz can't get close enough. And Qadsiah take a first close round.
Dude, some of these bola shots from Lambda are just crazy, right? That time grouping a few players together, the immortality field saves a bunch of them, but they're so low that Ziad just gets in the mix there with Checkmate, who's already pretty charged up on the sim. There's no way you're keeping those players alive. So the Freya paying off there in round number 1 for Qadsiah.
Pretty astonishing showing. This is obviously a map where Twisted Minds try and, force Lambda into an uncomfortable spot by denying the Sojourn. But he seems to be very good there. And it's one of those Freya games that because of her Bounty Hunter passive, she tends to snowball out of control. 4 singular deaths here for Lambda. And obviously a ridiculous amount of damage is vomited into Twisted Minds. Timeout. And again, it's going to be a diva here for KSA this time around. So mirrored in that respect. It still will be Freya v Cassidy though, as the points of difference.
It seems like Quartz, I mean, really, we saw a little bit maybe in the last series is they do get Checkmate here, so good start. Really just doesn't seem to, can play the Freya at times, but seems way more comfortable playing whether it is the Cassidy or the Soj, as see here early on. This is a great start for TM.
You definitely feel like you're going to look at a dogfight with these mirrored symmetric compositions, and both sims are going to be at some risk when those divas come on in. Really comes about momentum as these teams try and punish a rather fragile frontlining DPS. Lambda goes over towards the Mei here, trying to again catch people out. Not the diva so much as maybe a sim or someone similar. Ziad de-suited very early on, and now Quartz are starting to hit those shots. You teased it in the previous round that the next couple of rounds on this map would definitely suit Cassidy's effective range.
Way better for the Cassidy, and I think you're even starting to see that pay off where Lambda doesn't maybe want to match in terms of the Cassidy, right? The Soj gone, right? That is what Lambda's really been phenomenal on. And now forced over to a Mei, right? This is a little bit of a different look here. It worked the other day when they were playing like the Reinhardt, right? But with that Diva in the mix, I don't think it's as effective.
It's definitely not the best catch tool against the mobile tank. Here's the TP4 from Qadsiah. Simple defensively, hastily deployed by Yubi. KSA DMEC, but a chance to climb back in. Now Simple barely alive. They get Sune Rush ticking and landed. We're down to the blast. We're seeing an inordinate amount of deaths to self-destructs here. And that's because these two teams are not giving each other any space, any breathing room to speak of. Now Qadsiah, forced onto this Mei, are struggling in this second round.
It just seems like they just don't have the same amount, obviously close to consistent damage output that Twisted Minds is able to have with that Cassidy in the mix. So you're starting to see some of these early bans coming into effect. It's the first round, obviously was a great sightlines for Freya, like I talked about. But now as we move throughout the map, this is going to start to look really good for the cast.
Here's the push up. Again, Mei wall that really just denies reinforcements instead of catching out the Diva. Course into the middle of the map. Deadeye ready. Shut down though by Defense Matrix. Ziad quick on that right click, and here's that sim wall now in play. Course is trying to navigate it as best he can, and all of that Qadsiah using that to allow them to push up and isolate KSA on the fringes of the map. He stands still, and there's a sound barrier opportunity for Funny Astra should it be required, and Kellex is out of the game. Quartz is hitting these shots. Qadsiah taking the fight to Twisted Minds, and that's exactly what their opponents were looking for there. Blizzard now comes down, can't be eaten up, and KSA is frozen stiff. Knocked out of mech, and this is our Qadsiah's opportunity to work their way back into the fight, but Yubi is hitting very hard. Charged up with another wall developed, and Kellex really has no escape. Sharpshooting from Quartz should account for the Lucio, and he does. Lambda juggled up here. Messy stuff, but Twisted Minds are back in the hot seat.
I mean, Quartz just dominating here on the Cassidy. Funny Astro gets the high ground, deals with checkmate as we are tied here on Oasis. Dude, I mean, this Cassidy just gonna pay off. You can't really even play the Mei here on this final map. Maybe this is slightly better with the Freya for some of the high ground, but should still be pretty solid for the cast.
Especially if you have that point control. You can't necessarily outpoke the Freya if you're playing up on the platform, but we've seen Quartz do very well, really benefiting from the Symmetra walls that Yubi's been throwing up. Allows him to close the gap, get back into that nice little mid-range that Qadsiah likes to occupy. You see Lambda has continued to pull on the damage, but it was definitely a round that Cassidy highlighted. Nicely done by Twisted Minds here. Good looks overall. Making this a real game. That's just what we were hoping for. And I love that we get to see these teams throw down in sort of somewhat mirrored compositions here. It's all about that communication when it comes to setting up good sim TPs. Nice little boop there to disrupt Twisted Minds as they stake their claim to the high ground early behind a TP. Yubi and Lambda trade out. Both DPSs, but now Qadsiah have the point of difference that sim TP is still available to them.
And what do you think about rolling with the Mei here on this point? again. I think you're probably better off taking your chances with the Freya here, as opposed to trying to run this back with the Mei.
I feel like the D.Va also makes it harder for Freya, especially in those close quarters environments. So it's not just it being a tighter part of the map, but also the potential for the D.Va to really make your life difficult. You see though, there's a couple of decent spots to find catches here. I think the ice block is just important for sustain in some of these dragged out fights. You're relying on Lucio Kiriko healing throughput, and sometimes it's not enough when you've got D.Vas in your face. Simple here, exemplifying this now, is it's been very hard for Twisted Minds to get KSA fighting fit again. And there's a sound barrier now for our Qadsiah. They're not going to give Twisted Minds a chance to recover. Barreling on into this small room. Kellex and Checkmate rack them up. KSA knocked out a mech, and a wall in his way means there's no escape for the D.Va. That's our Qadsiah, who will stagger him out further.
And you can be that aggressive there for Qadsiah when you know you kind of have that advantage in terms of the beat, right? You kind of get the beat, push up on in, and don't just deny Twisted Minds from being able to heal up, gain their support ults, and then come in from that high ground. I really like that decision there from Qadsiah.
And they come again, this time Quartz, knowing much of this damage will be mitigated by Defense Matrix, knows he's got to do it anyway. Maybe thrown up for our Qadsiah. Buys him the ability to get back to this high ground where Quartz does not have good sightlines, especially not now. Symbol attempted to be defeated by a TP. Quartz, though, cannot reposition in order to find connection on the Deadeye. Self-destruct here. A remake for Ziad now as Checkmate's wall finally expires. Our Qadsiah bought themselves some critical moments with that Symmetra ultimate, but now it's time to throw down against the sound barrier. Twisted Minds. Checkmate TPing on either side of the wall, and he finds KSA vulnerable without enough support. Self-destruct attempted, and Yubi's able to take his opposite number down in the sim. It's Labda falling though. KSA back in mech and ready to throw down. That may have been a bunny blaster elimination there after the fact. Ziad got to be knocked out now. KSA fighting fit. That's the engagement that Twisted Minds were looking for. It came down to the sound barrier.
I mean, everybody dumping ultimates into that fight. Yubi holds on to this wall, and you're actually going to have Quartz go over and play the Freya. So with that Mei, right, maybe you feel like you're just kind of getting run down, with the Cassidy, like the Mei and everybody just kind of getting in your face with the TP, where now you can gain this verticality that, well, I was going to say, and it can't really take out, but that is a long-range icicle there, a headshot from Labda.
Shades of backbone there from Labda. Now, though, it's easier to cut the Freya out of the game by, ice walling her into a weird spot. Harder to catch her, sure. Harder for her to get involved in the fight against this self-destruct here. Gonna have to be used by Ziad. He's okay. Back in mech now. Checkmate. Oh, you're
come on.
Oh, Icarus flew too close to the sun there. Young Wonder Kid ends up undoing himself now as Twisted Minds will have the point flipped back against them, and a sound barrier for both sides means the next fight is going to be a no-holds-barred throwdown for the round.
I mean, that's the Kitsune rush there, and Ziad just stomps. Simple. So beats to match for both sides. It'll be a Blizzard sim wall advantage here for Qadsiah. They're very close. I mean, this is going to be final play.
Biding their time, the Twisted Minds know the need to win this fight and the next. Maybe hoping to build a bowler shot here for Quartz, but tough to poke down at our Qadsiah, who have priority. There's KSA down to the low ground briefly. Quartz! Oh, buddy! Has the mobility, fortunate to stay alive, but is knocked out of the fight. This is what I mentioned earlier. How does Quartz get back involved once more? Sound barrier, but of course, Quartz isn't close enough to get it. KSA D-Mech, no chance to climb back in. He is cooked. The Blizzard isn't going to make things any better either. Our Qadsiah finally get a grip on the game in this round. Simple, once again falling, this time at least not to a self-destruct, but as the dust settles, it's your top-seeded team coming out with the first map win.
And I really love watching these two teams play because throughout EMEA, we haven't seen a lot of like sim on sim, right? We've seen like just basically Qadsiah or Twisted Minds play sim, dominate the other team, and that's really been it. Nobody has been able to kind of play it against. So now that we get both these teams playing it, you're starting to see like they kind of have an idea where to go with like certain counters and how to kind of play against it, with that Mei being a big factor late.
You can see like Quartz was obviously feeling a bit uncomfortable on the Cassidy there, but the switch to the Freya left him without opportunities actually to have big impact in these fights. You can see he was just pushed away by the D.Va as he tried to get good damage off on that high ground. Nicely done by Ziad here, just identifying that Quartz would be a real nuisance in these longer fights, chaining some of those big ultimates together. But on the Freya topic, it's Labda with some ridiculous 4 or more player bowlers in that first round city center. That's what got them off and running.
And I think anytime, if you're Qadsiah, anytime that you can get the D.Va head-to-head, you feel so good about that scenario against Twisted Minds. I think Twisted Minds obviously best looks. As a KSA can play the D.Va, but their best looks have been like the Ram type of setups. Anytime you can get like a D.Va head-to-head, I mean, with how good Ziad has been and with no like Brig in the game here, I know nobody playing Brig early on, I think that's a huge dub for Qadsiah.
And they're feeling good, of course. This is the first to 4 series, so it is a long run from here on out. But Qadsiah with a very solid showing. The couple of occasions that the front runners for Twisted Minds there, like we talked a lot about Simple here. He's on a Kiriko for much of that game, is trying to balance that aggression with, safer play. In the end, though, it ends up just being a complete brawl. Labda going over towards the Mei, right? We questioned it. Is it good enough to catch out players with consistency? So the wall being used more often just to try and isolate certain people from the fight, because Twisted Minds are playing in 2 halves almost, especially after they switch off the Cassidy. So curious to see what you guys at home are thinking about this game. That is crazy. That is a crazy prediction total here for Twisted Minds. Some dedicated fans out there, but make no mistake, folks, Qadsiah are the dominant team in EMEA so far.
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to see these viewer predictions if they actually throw their own money in. These channel points, it's easy to take a shot on Underdog. Toss some money in there. That was Qadsiah. Okay. All right. Never mind. Everybody riding it. I was going to say, it's like that's a lot of money coming in on a dog here. I mean,
so conversely, I do think this is pretty low for Twisted Minds. Bearing in mind,
it should be higher, I think.
Yeah, it was a 5 map run. I think the Twisted Minds look really good in really specific places. Don't forget how that Qadsiah map went last time they played. That was dominant stuff from TM. I think like not even 40 meters picked up for Qadsiah there. So we're going straight to it, Matt. No holds barred, no messing about. Straight over to King's Row. Arguably the best map, definitely the best map type here for Twisted Minds. They want to get on the board now.
Yeah, why wait, right? Especially in like a, first to 4 type of scenario. Why wait, delay this? They just got to kind of, send it here on King's Row. And look, we've already seen them, win it against VP today. So all signs point to good things here for TM. Now,
that also puts a lot of weight on this map because it's a must-win virtually for Twisted Minds in this series. You think about they are playing their, their God card pretty early on in the series. Definitely one they need to convert on. I just want to remind you guys that it's not been a great outing for Qadsiah going to this map. So they want to spend a pretty expensive ban right here. It's Ramatra being targeted. The Mei also being taken up by Twisted Minds. I think there's a world where, Qadsiah want to try and counter the Ramatra without using bans to do so. Mei would have been reasonable, but Qadsiah say, look, we're just going to get him out of the way here. We don't need to use Mei if it's not, a Ramatra that we're trying to punish. So we are going to be forced off that key tank pick. Might end up looking towards D.Vas or maybe even another sort of brawly frontline option.
So let's see. So for the bans, right? Like you talked about, the Twisted Minds gets rid of the Mei, right? So we saw Lab to play a decent amount of the Mei, which was pretty impactful. And then I love the Qadsiah ban. Get rid of the Ram, right? Force KSA to beat you on the D.Va head-to-head, like I talked about. It's not like you can't do it, right? I think that's just where you have the biggest advantage if you're Qadsiah. Get them on the D.Va, get them playing like an Orisa or something along those lines, and I think you're in a good spot if you're Qadsiah.
It's another feature, I think, of King's Row being picked so early in the series when that Ramatra ban is still available to Qadsiah. So in hindsight, they're probably not too worried about it. Twisted Minds could have waited on this map pick and had the risk of like Midtown or even, God forbid, Hollywood being picked against them. So they probably feel like their hand is forced a little bit here. But it leaves Qadsiah with a clean slate in terms of bans in that they haven't used up the Ramatra. So D.Va Mirror, it's going to be Kiriko, Lucio, backlines. In fact, across the board, mirror compositions for our top EMEA teams.
And we'll just get a chance to see who plays this style better, right? Both these teams have kind of made their money throughout this stage playing these sim-based setups. As I think one of the main, just with the D.Va in play, that's where Qadsiah has really looked at their best. As we'll see if TM can kind of match that.
Well, a checkmate is in Timbuktu, but I don't know how he got there. That is like a TP4 to something similar. That's a pretty big misstep there by Qadsiah. They now really lack the stopping power for a frontliner like D.Va.
I mean, without checkmate, I mean, that is brutal, right? That allows Yubi to start ramping, but hey, Yubi steps up a little bit too far. I mean, these sims, you just 1 or 2 shots and they're gone.
Pretty good recovery. Checkmate taken down off rip, and it's been Labda salvaging things for our Qadsiah time and time again in this fight.
Yeah.
Great conversion there for our Qadsiah on a short-handed engagement. They back away. They bait Twisted Mind in. They're taking an engagement. And Labda is looking absolutely lethal if he's given the space to breathe.
And I was like, I was gonna say, I mean, man, like, is Labda one of the most improved players? But like, really, it's just you're seeing him play heroes that we like traditionally haven't seen him play. But he's been phenomenal once he's been putting on the hit scan. Nice Kitsune rush here from Simple, gonna put it right over the point. See if they can take it off of this.
Ziad, I think, needs to find a way to get back in his mech here. The sound barrier comes a little bit too late to save him. It's both support ults expended by our Qadsiah, but without a diva to be the vehicle of those buffs. It's going to be hard to win a fight here. Qadsiah is down, and now Qadsiah happy to play off the point here because Twisted Mind's struggling to put that pressure down. Sound barrier waited out for the most part, but eventually they've got to go. In for a penny, in for a pound, says Labda. The D-suit on KSA. He's out of mech, but it's not enough left for our Qadsiah to capitalize on the lack of the bulky body. So Twisted Minds eventually, tooth and nail, fight for that first point.
And like you discussed, it's just Ziad not having the mech, right? If he's able to get back in the mech and get towards that point, it's a little bit different. But Twisted Minds, the battle is long, but they're able to come out on top. Now you've got this overclock ball, man. They might be able to run it up through the second part of the map.
Choke is definitely the focus now. Harder to control it with a tank like Diva, but Ziad's still going to step up and plug the gap, so to speak. Here's an overclock from Qadsiah. This is dangerous. Simwall as well is going to complicate things now for our Qadsiah, but they've got one of their own. They're going to cross over. How do you dance this safely? Dealing with this damage output of Qadsiah. Self-destruct for Ziad. Needs another mech back now as Checkmate's wall will dissipate first. And Twisted Minds will be allowed to move up. The disengages from our Qadsiah have been good, but now they need to regain that ground they gave up in order to give them an advantage. And Yubi doesn't want to allow for that. Oh, the sim turret, so Yubi vulnerable out in front, too far forward. That's going to be something we're tracking, Matt, is those sims getting too far away from their defensive architecture and punish for it.
Yeah, but I think TM is going to keep this going on the offensive, right? You lose Landon, that's an even bigger loss there for our Qadsiah, and that's going to back them up, right? Just not enough healing resources kind of stand toe-to-toe there with Twisted Minds.
Yeah, just ran out of defense matrix to stop that railgun coming through, so Qadsiah gets another kill on the backside. If that doesn't happen, our Qadsiah have a chance to recover in the fight again. Here come Twisted Minds, barreling straight down mid. They're going to use the Kitsune rush to such an effect. It's going to be mirrored though. Landon deploys one of his. Low is KSA. Ziad also out of mech. It's Buddy Blasters for all now. As Kellex is going to round that sound barrier slightly earlier for Funny Astro though. Both teams shielded up to the nines. Labda looking to try and push up here. Sim TP in play, but our Qadsiah not making use of it right now. It's Yubi again, flattened first. Can't hold up under the pressure in that front line. Labda close to an overclock now. Trying to look, I think, for KSA, who's demexed yet again, and that favors our Qadsiah. They have lost Checkmate, though. It's all on Labda here to find that extra damage and not allow KSA to remech. He's achieved that goal. And now it's just the dregs of Twisted Minds remaining. Court steals with Labda, but that's not enough.
Man, as I thought Quartz may be able to make something happen here. It looks like he backed up a little bit. Still wants to kind of maybe press up as okay, now you have KSA back in the fight. It looks like Yubi back here as well via TP. So this next fight's going to kick off rather quickly.
This sim wall is so big for Checkmate. Can he get it down early enough? Quartz already finds a headshot, but the sim wall now will be forthcoming. Labda reciprocates. Railguns from both sides, and now Quartz's options are significantly limited, such that there has to be a full disengage from Twisted Minds. The clock burns down further. Under 2 minutes, and Labda takes a pretty aggressive stance, but that's, I guess, facilitated by Ziad pushing up onto that right side corner. He'll linger, but not for too long. Needs to keep his mech alive. That's crucial. Ziad ducks back close to a self-destruct, but can't build it. Simple with a Suzu now. Ziad out of mech. This is where Twisted Minds could go up again with Yubi. Punished again. Checkmate from the back line sends a little bit of an orb in and picks up the sim. Now, though, awkward spot. TP's to gain some distance, but he's still on the enemy side of the map as Landon once again falls. Good shots coming in from Yubi. Kellex and Ziad fall on the gambit from our Qadsiah ultimately does not pay off.
Look, you cannot lose Ziad at the beginning of these fights and expect to kind of pull off some miraculous comebacks as he dies yet again, gets demeched at the front of that fight. And even with a trade right after, you're still with KSA in mech in a significantly better spot to end up taking it. I think for Qadsiah though, you did burn a significant amount of clock there off the Twisted Minds. I know time pool there.
All right, here's that Kitsune rush. KSA demeched instantly. He will have that recover, but it buys valuable seconds here for our Qadsiah. Now, though, they need to face down Simple's Kitsune rush himself. Ziad at least, of course, can back into mech. Should have been required. Keep an eye on those front lines now as the sound barriers are deployed. Health bars is where your eyes should be as Laptors just ceases to exist. Simple gets in there, benefiting from the fire rate increase. Those kunais coming out in a flurry. And now Qadsiah trying to regroup, and they've done so. Yubi again down so early here for Twisted Minds. KSA, no remake opportunity. Ziad has his and gets to retain it. Staying alive at a sliver of health and picking up a mini. He's going to be back in the fight. Now Qadsiah can drag this out on and on.
Yeah, and I think they look much better, Qadsiah, when they're just upping the pace and not trying to play some of this neutral. That's where I think they kind of end up losing out on some of the damage, and then Ziad ends up getting demacked. It's going to be an overclock here for Quartz. It's going to be the checkmate sim wall in response as they back them up all the way.
It's utterly countered. Like, there's no answer to it. And again, the same is available to Twisted Minds, but they might need to use their sim wall more aggressively to give them some extra space. Even though they know there is an overclock that they'd want to counter. Yubi's got to stay alive, and as I said, an offensive sim wall in play. That now means, of course, Labta can hold on to that overclock and make good use of it later, but Checkmate is just caught out in a weird spot, trying to make a pay for the flank. Ends up blowing up in his face, though. Ziad controls this space effectively. Remember, he still has that remake opportunity. He goes for an aggressive self-destruct. Oh, you're kidding. It got the D-Mech on KSA.
Whoa,
he didn't have his boosters available to get away, man. There's just no option for him. He had no choice. And that is a gut punch to Twisted Minds. Ziad already building towards his next self-destruct, and Labda still holding on to overclock. This could be trouble. This could be curtains for Twisted Minds.
And how many remakes is Ziad actually going to turn into? Like, kills, or, you know, that time get to D-Mech on the other side. I mean, the last map, right, he's able to get Simple now in a crucial situation, able to get KSA out of mech. Typically, you kind of look at that self-destruct, right, as just the ability to get a new mech back, but Ziad making nice work of it.
Go time for Twisted Minds. That is a very aggressive TP forward. Qadsiah happy to play off the card and wait for this Kitsune Rush to expire, but now they're going to play from the attacker's side of the map, and they've got to be quick about it. TP forward, got him up to the high ground. There's a fantastic pivot from the defenders, and Funny Asteroid gets flattened. Here's the sound barrier now as Kellex sends Qadsiah forward. With a vengeance, they come and retake the card, and what was once theirs. Now, summarily handing down potentially what could be the first hybrid map loss for Twisted Minds. That is a great start. A good defense hold. Now all they've got to do is exceed that progress.
And I mean, that would just be a little bit of a gut punch, right? If Twisted Minds ends up dropping this one to Qadsiah, I think it would just be Qadsiah just showing what type of level they're currently at here in EMEA. We take a look at some of the stats as you know, checkmate on that sim. I mean, look at that, 8,900 compared to UB 62. And then in terms of like that hit scan, right, Quartz, you know, 9,300. Like, you know, he's getting the better of Lambda at the moment, but a big difference in terms of the sim damage.
For me, it's the number in the death column for Ziad, Matt. That's telling so much of the story to me. I mean, a singular death over the course of a very, very scrappy first half of this map. Great showing. I mean, Checkmate and UV both dying 7 times. They are playing ultra aggressively. They are solo TPing into each other's backlines and trying to find picks. I remember Checkmate being able to do it in the second phase of the map, just like orbing Yubi without him expecting it. Let's listen to Qadsiah now. Of course, they've got to be feeling good. This is Twisted Minds' best map by all accounts, and they've got exactly the dream start they were looking for.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone peeking yet. They're gonna have Sim, I think. Maybe like, yeah, they have Sim.
Yeah,
Sim holding statue.
Yeah, we can take one swing on the sim, okay? On statue.
If I can, maybe if I can TP point, we can go. I will see.
Okay, yeah. Just get, if you push sim, just get the solid flanking every time.
Yeah.
Okay,
TP point,
3,
2, 1, take.
Hitting the A, shooting Diva point.
Nice.
I can't.
Stay place. If they push me, fight.
Diva.
D1, killing. Support on, no, look at this one.
Shima. Can you go bunch? Fight. Keep fight.
Sim, this is nice. Third domain.
Baby one. Nice.
Nice CB.
I have beat soon. They have no Kyrio because he died. Yeah, I'm way faster.
That last point, very important. No Curry ultimate, because Simple died first in that fight. He is way behind Landon in terms of that Kitsune Rush, which presents a snowball opportunity for Qadsiah in the next few moments. Twisted Minds have to do something to try and steer the winds back in their favor, but they've lost Yubi early. This is turning into a disastrous showing. Simple redeems himself, though. It's a pick on checkmate, but that's all he can manage before having a swift step back away.
Yeah, and I think their idea to take a early fight here is the right decision, but the fight goes so fast for Qadsiah, they don't really kind of get what they want, which was just like, you know, you probably are going to lose that fight if you're Twisted Minds, right? But make it long, get Qadsiah to use a support ult, right? Then you start to feel a little bit better about it. But the fight goes so fast. You know, Simple builds like about like 20 or 30% towards a rush there, but you're still significantly behind in rush and beat.
And now they have to face both of them down from Qadsiah, Matt. This could be...
Quartz made a ton of progress, too.
And they're allowing it to. They're allowing Twisted Minds to get in position. They might be waiting on Funny Astro's beat or something else, but they might not be given the time to do so. Here's the Kitsune Rush, and they are going for it. KSA demeched instantly. And this is going from bad to worst. A living nightmare for Twisted Minds, who can't get out of their own heads. Landon, 2 kills in that fight, and they didn't even have to use sound barrier. That is devastating. Now, at best, Twisted Minds can match support ultimates, but they're dealing with a sim wall as well. Twisted Minds have to throw themselves at this. This checkpoint is everything, and they're being forced back deep into the map by Ziad. They'll have one crack at this map, but that is all they can hang their hat on. Here's that sim wall. Lambda now happy to navigate both of them as it comes in. Sound barrier later for Qadsiah will benefit them later on in the fight. It's Quartz looking to take it off angle fire, but he gets smashed by Lambda. Dominated by the first railgun that came in. And Lambda was able to finish the job with Funny Astro trying to step up. And there's nothing to be done. Qadsiah are on a run. They're steamrolling Twisted Minds. And it's desperation now for the defense side team. A 5-minute 20 time bank is immense.
I mean, what the hell was this guy, a Pharah one trick for ages? I mean, my lord. I mean, just on the Sojourn or the Freya. I mean, Lambda just showing up in a huge way. 5-minute plus, Mitch. They don't even need to complete the map. This is just a drubbing here by Qadsiah.
And I know Psycho likes to bring up that Saudi E-League, mate, but I tell you what, this is a different field, and Qadsiah look like a different beast today. SimTP made use of, disrupt the shot, accounting for checkmate there as Quartz has managed to tuck himself on a nice off angle. And he's able to shut down Qadsiah in their tracks. Now Twisted Minds had to dig in for one of their biggest defensive endeavors off the stage.
This is going to be so tough, though, man. I mean, Kitsune Rush available here for Qadsiah. That might be enough, right? To just be able to do it, as you're also going to get Lambda with another overclock, building these so fast.
TP to the high ground. That's going to be controlled by Qadsiah here. Twisted Minds give ground, but how much can they afford to give up before this map gets taken off them? Ziad gets forward. Knows that KSA's low on the high ground. If he can force a D-mech here, it would be massive. Tries to body block. KSA a long way from his mech. Self-destruct. Can he get back into it? Yubi was low, but topped up in a pinch there by Simple, who has Kitsune Rush now available. Suzu used. The rush comes out, but Simple falls in a screaming heap. Lambda wants to press up, but he has to contend with that overshield. He deals with it. Both support ultimates, and that's not enough here for Twisted Minds. There's Qadsiah looking to take their victory lap now. Kellex with the beat. D-Mech for KSA. And that's signed and sealed. Twisted Minds head their first hybrid map loss of the stage. And what a time for it to happen. Qadsiah go up 2-0 in series.
That is a tough way to lose King's Row. I mean, this is one we just saw them take over VP, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes ago. And they just, they're not able to complete the map on their offense. And then on D, man, just little to no resistance, right? I mean, Qadsiah just kind of plowed on through.
How does this look if Twisted Minds are allowed to play Ramatra map? How different is this outcome?
Maybe a little, and look, that's kind of what I was talking about. Like, I think KSA can obviously play the Diva, but it just seems like when you get to these Diva sim matchups with like the Soj in the mix, that is Qadsiah's bread and butter, right? I mean, you know, they get Ziad on this Diva, and good luck, right? I mean, could TM even consider banning Diva? Like, I think it would be possible.
I mean, yeah, you have that available to you for one map, but I think that just forces Qadsiah into the full Ramatra counter strategy, right? I mean, bear in mind, there is still, like, I don't want to see Circuit Royal again. I think that's something that in the past, we've seen Twisted Minds pick after losing control. They didn't do it today, in fairness, and I don't know if they want to run into Qadsiah's comp on that map at all, Matthew, because they will play Mei and Bastion, and they will just ruin KSA at every opportunity.
You know it's serious when you call me Matthew. I mean, you know you're spitting there when you call me Matthew. Yup, ring the bell.
It's dire, bro. We're DEFCON 1. We are full first names now, bro.
Yeah, you know, that's full on. You know, only the grandma uses the full name, right? So we're in that territory now. Where, yeah, I mean, they're in a world of trouble. You go like a new junk city. Okay, they go circuit. They're gonna go circuit again. This is exactly what you didn't want to see.
That is monumental levels of oof. I think that yeah, I wonder what the ban strategy looks like here. Is because obviously the Diva's not really, probably not the go for our Qadsiah on this map. Do Twisted Minds go to the extent of banning the Orisa here to try and give KSA a slightly more comfortable time in the front line? Because I'm pretty sure they've already expended their May ban. They did that on the first map.
Yeah, Twisted Minds has gotten rid of May, and they've gotten rid of the Sojourn here already, right? I mean, you're not going to get rid of the Freya, right? I mean, that seems like a waste of a ban.
It was pretty good in map 1.
Do you ban Diva? Okay, so this is interesting. They end up Twisted Minds will ban the Lucio. So this forces kind of like a double flex option here, right? You're looking at like that Juno Kiri that like Twisted Minds is really good at. And then Qadsiah gets rid of the Freya because they're like, all right, well, screw it. Like, make Quartz play, the Sojourn head to head against Elabda, who has just been on fire.
Okay, so we've seen it very recently from Twisted Minds. We see them sort of fight it out on this map. They love to use the Sim TP forwards, set up off angles for both the Sojourn, which they played in the map. They didn't play Freya, and Kiriko. It's obviously risky. It's obviously punishable. Qadsiah are also, unlike VP, a team who will play Sim, should they have to. But I really want to focus in on the front line because I think that Qadsiah, there's no reason for them not to roll out that same sort of very punishing style against Ramatra. It was, the circuit rule was close. If you remember it, I think the Twisted Minds were able to push like halfway into that last phase of the map. They were, able to get a pretty strong foothold. And Qadsiah, man, like just a little bit different. The Sim play, I think, is, potentially going to, take importance, especially if at some point we end up switching off the main Bastion, right? If Qadsiah, don't want to sort of go there. Remember, they have choice of side here as well. So they may opt to start defense and show us a different look.
Qadsiah is pretty sick on this map, especially running like the Diva with the Sim. We've seen them kind of like, you TP Ziad all the way around, right? High ground, different areas on this map. It is so difficult for teams to deal with. So I'm curious what TM probably feels like some kind of like, Juno Kiri is a moment of disadvantage for them, but I don't know if I feel that way. Like, I think on the other side of things, right? Can Kellex just play like Rig, I guess, right? I mean, that's kind of where you would see Kellex potentially go.
I guess. That's obviously an option. I do think that we talked about it in the previous series. Like sometimes the Funny Astro on Juno is probably much easier to sort of punish, to get into the back line. Do you guys thoughts? What do you think about this matchup?
I don't think he has many thoughts. His thoughts are he wants to get on the ground. Then once he's on the ground, he wants to get back up. Those are the extent of his thoughts. He's a little thought crazy today. Yeah, I don't know if that's a bell, right? I know that he can't really kind of.
If A1 decides it's a bell, it's a bell. I don't tell you.
That's true. Oh, this would be a little. Is this on a defense though? No, yeah, you're not gonna do this on defense. So, Qadsiah, they'll actually run the Juno Kiri as well, and they'll match the Ram. This is like a, you lose this if you're Twisted Minds.
I mean, you're cool.
Obviously, you're down 3-0, and then they beat you on a comp that you like want to play. You're approaching the cooked phase. I want to
point it out quickly, Matt. VP were able to match Ramatra with some degree of success into Twisted Minds previously.
It is true.
KSA definitely can bleed on this pick. I think a lot hinges on what ends up getting around it.
Ram, though, is one of Estola's best heroes, right? And I wouldn't say that, obviously KSA pretty good on the Ram, right? But Estola, one of the, better Ram players you can kind of think of.
So how then does Ziad match up? It's a question, of course, we're going to have to wait for an answer to. It will be the Ana here for Simple on its attack side. Starting, of course, with the Bionades being potentially quite devastating. Sleep on Ziad here will quickly be woken up as he's in the thick of much of the fighting. But now that corner has been secured here. Maybe off the back of that sleep. Twisted Minds can now push up, start to make these TP plays. Qadsiah trying to be more defensive about it, but that's a bio on Ziad, and Labda picked off by Quartz. Not good signs for the defenders.
And that's a huge pickoff early on, but then Landon answers back with a kill on a Yubi, so a lot of this frontline damage now gone as Quartz is so dangerously low.
Some great orbs there for Checkmate, but he
nice.
overextends to try and complete the kill. Quartz falls back to a pretty perfect location, and KSA gets involved. I think now this turns into a bit of a stall stagger moment. As Landon will be handled by Simple. Slap up upside the head for his audacity. Twisted Minds now on the road.
And we've seen them go with this Ana a few times, and quite frankly, I haven't loved it. But that time, though, Simple able to get a few bios there on the Ziad, maybe try and like force out that Suzu early on, and then even able to land a sleep, right? Maybe even just kind of making it a little bit more costly. Like, okay, if you take that TP, you're gonna walk into a bio.
Oh, that's good pressure. Landon has been dishing a lot of damage in these fights, and that's a follow-up on a railgun connection by Labda. This is a big pressure relief valve now for our Qadsiah. One pick means so much to them in this kind of fight. Now they can match some of these big ultimates. Annihilation at the disposal of both of these tanks. It's a nano, though. I wonder how that plays into things.
Okay, so we're gonna get a Kitsune rush here from Landon. It's gonna be orbital rays from both sides as well. Simple actually uses a nano there. The nano is onto Yubi, though. They don't use the nano onto KSA while he's got the Annihilation rolling, and they just get dominated.
I think it's a lot of the no nano as well, but a lot of focus fire there on KSA, whereas Ziad found himself into the back line of Twisted Minds, tying up their supports, making it impossible to keep KSA standing. He literally was flanking, running into that back line. Beautifully done with that Annihilation. It's just too much for any mobile healer like Simple to handle. He just can't keep attention on healing while he's pressured like that.
So I guess the positive here for Twisted Minds, right? You do have this sim wall. We'll see, though, like, I know for Qadsiah, you could try and kind of kite this. So it'll be an overclock here for Quartz to try and open it up. Just trying to find anybody he can find here around the corner.
This is respected by Qadsiah as it should be. Finds them some really important meterage, and now it's a bit uncomfortable.
Overclock from Labda on the return, though.
Come on, I need it. Oh, man, it's so good. Man, he and Labda are mind-linked. They are going for those same targets, and Labda does not even need this overclock. Now, just no missteps from our Qadsiah. Still contest the car, but this is getting dangerous for Twisted Minds. They use their sim wall to no effect. And now, what may be the last fight for them, they've got to face down the terror that is Labda with an ultimate to spare.
And I was like, oh, is Qadsiah going to push up here? KSA is actually going to go to the Diva here. You probably feel like you even need to like use it to get close, get a touch. So this is, and Funny Astro going to be playing the Juno. We'll watch with his POV here for just a little bit as Qadsiah looks like they were okay giving up some space here, maybe even trying to build up this rush.
They've got to bait this overclock out, and they've got to withstand it. Good TP away. This means only in the dying seconds will they be able to touch the car, because that TP has been destroyed. There's no two-way street now for Twisted Minds. They're going to have to walk back the old-fashioned way. Labda has to hope that Ultimate did enough, because now Twisted Minds don't have any buffer. No room to breathe. It's go time, baby. Caught inside the vortex. They're able to TP away from it now. Spot the Kelex in the distance, but their eyes are over on those tanks instead. KSA struggling to stay alive. Going over towards the Diva. It's just not enough durability to hang inside these fights. Yubi again gets a nano. Should be able to win the fight out against Checkmate, but he's low. And Landon finishes him off. It's Quartz who's going to be exsanguinated by this Annihilation. No chance for a touch here as our Qadsiah are hurting Twisted Minds in all the worst ways. Ooh. Twisting the dagger, taking yet another map away from TM. And now their opponents, in theory, would have to reverse sweep if they can't have an incredible hold here. It's got to be cooked after that attack side, man.
The first two maps were just they're nice body shots, but this one might be a headshot here from Qadsiah. I mean, this is a rough one, right? TM at a few opportunities, but with some of these fights, when you're kind of and for Twisted Minds, right, you're kind of like pooling these ultimates, just kind of dump in at that one time, and really it was that one big fight they kind of had. When you end up losing that, I mean, you're already looking at like what, a minute on the clock at that time, right? I mean, you don't really have a great opportunity to even fight back.
That's why I'm almost jinxing it, but speaking as if the map is over, because that is just not enough. It's not enough for really any team at this level. It's going to have to be a monumental, legendary hold here for Twisted Minds, I think, to win this map. It's so simple. He's going over towards the sim. Something that he started to make his name on a little bit here. It's the right map for it, the right place. Is it enough?
Yeah, Simple on the Zen. So, going to be playing that Zen. We see him play it on Ilios time and time. I do wonder though, like, are you going to get collapsed upon, right? Ilios is able to use like that float perk to kind of go from high ground to high ground, and uses that to be quite effective. I wonder if he's going to be able to do it here. So Qadsiah potentially hovering over this, Diva with Bastion setup. So we've seen some teams go to the Bastion here at times, able to just kind of like burn down that Ram. Now it's going to be Labda though. I think that also the Bastion off the spawn just kind of scares them a little bit to back up. And this is where though they have looked so good on this map in the past, right? Using these TPs to get Ziad into position like up there on that high ground bridge, and he's able to hold on to his defense matrix, hold on to his flight form, and then use them to be quite aggressive.
Look at all this ground that Twisted Minds are giving up. They are really investing in playing this corner. And you'll see we're Simple standing very far back. That is somewhere, though, that is challengeable with a TP. All right, Diva diving in. Ziad doesn't complete the job, but look at this discipline. Doesn't overcommit to the kill. Tying up 3 players now, all on his own, allowing that corner to be taken away from Twisted Minds. That is a big kill from Quartz. Very important. And now Ziad probably needs to be rescued from that position. You've got to respect KSA at that range. Lab to flatten, but once again, Landon might be coming to the rescue again. They have their tank still in the game, whereas Twisted Minds are under some serious pressure. A D-Mech here on Ziad. Cart stalled up in that position, and Landon unlikely that he can do more here.
Yeah, I think highly unlikely. Landon does end up getting out though to the rest of the team using that Kiri DP. I mean, dude, Kiri's mobility is insane, especially in combination with the Sim and Diva. So you'll have a Kitsune Rush available here for Qadsiah, but you do have Funny Astro who built up to this orbital right quite quickly. I think that's going to be very impactful in this next fight.
Orbital Ray versus Rush. Landed. Oh, Quartz is getting dominated, just thrown at by Qadsiah. All those players now to deal with him, and Funny Astro could be in some degree of trouble. Can't quite get back into the orbital ray. He's knocked away from it by Ziad. Still decent couple of players here left to defend this, but Twisted Minds in a longer fight are going to struggle. They TP out now. They will allow the cart to progress. This is a very clever little repositioning on a dime behind the symbol to make sure they have enough space to regroup.
Yeah, the biggest difference though for Qadsiah, right? You're going to end up having your sim wall here to work with. You're also probably going to end up building up towards your orbital, right? A really nice TP in with the Kitsune Rush. No way that Quartz could kind of react and stay alive.
Here's that wall coming up now. It's going to cut off most of the defenders trying to hide, and Checkmate goes past it now, pressuring Quartz down. Straight through the TP goes Ziad, and Yubi's been dealt with. Transcendence is in play, but it wasn't enough to save their critical Symmetra. Now Simple falls back out of the fight. Gets a D-Mech on the Diva, but there's a self-destruct to refresh, and Simple desperately trying to hurl orbs here. Kitchen sink it all. He's trying to throw at the attackers, but Qadsiah will not be denied. And this is turning into an utter bloody bloodbath as Qadsiah do secure the deal here on Circuit Royal.
I mean, they are just... They're just beating them down. I mean, this feels bad at this point, right? Twisted Minds, we'll see if they can kind of make a comeback, right? They almost pulled a reverse sweep off yesterday, so don't want to say this one is just over yet. But with the way these 3 maps have gone, Mitch, I'm like, okay, what does TM even do to get an advantage?
Landon has more damage than both his DPS.
I mean, well, when we see him use the TPs and go in with the Kitsune Rush and just live with Ziad forever, I'm not surprised.
I mean, we already gave this guy the Superstar Award. That is a disgusting Kiriko game. That is absolutely.
I mean, you could have just given the Superstar Award to everybody on Qadsiah. Just
no, I don't know, man. Landon's just a little different, bro. That doesn't make any sense. He's got more damage than both. He's got more damage than his bloody than his Sojourn. Sorry, that's crazy. We're gonna go to a desk hit here. We're gonna break down what we've seen so far while I collect myself, because that should not happen in my Overwatch.
Not in Mitch's Overwatch.
You can just see him stunned looking at the numbers, just like, Landon, stop it. Just stop it. You're breaking the game.
Actually, low-key criminal. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's actually kind of difficult to even break this one down, right? Because no matter what Twisted Minds were trying, be that compositional switches or just a different approach in taking engagements, Qadsiah always seem to be one step ahead of them. They've been in a driver's seat ever since they left the first spawn room. It's been an uphill battle, to say the least.
Yeah, you just literally see Qadsiah standing over Twisted Minds right now, and it's like Twisted Minds just constantly having to punch up. They're attempting so many different things here to try and make it work, and it always just seems like either a cut just below where they need to be, or in instances like the idea, even with the Zen that they're trying to bring to this, just finding some kind of answer. It works a little bit, Johnny, where you have to see this overcommittance onto it, but it's just the execution in the end still eventually comes true, where Qadsiah is just able to finally find the weakness and exploit it and then leave them vulnerable.
I mean, yeah, that's how like you'd make the Zen work. It's just like this Zen is a distraction. We know they're gonna dive him with the teleporter, and then you just have to like trade out. But at the end of the day, like it's just not enough there. And you saw how confident Qadsiah were to just get on top of the Zen, disengage, wait for your abilities to come back online, re-engage, and they end up winning these fights. And I mean, it's over, guys. It's over. I'm calling
okay.
it. It's just a diff. It's just a diff. The Qadsiah players are just firing on all cylinders. Labda is just like walking around with an overclock, just like one-shotting people. Like Mitch pointed out, Landon is just having, you know, a game of its life. It's an amazing performance, really. So Qadsiah are just, you know, playing some of the best Overwatch right now. This is it's really impressive.
And the
Right, we do see a sub though.
The Sojourn play, like Landon and Labda, just in unison are constantly getting those picks.
Right, so we're seeing the sub right now on our screen. So TVNT is coming in for KSA, and also we are heading to Suravasa, if understood correctly. Johnny, it's still over though, or is there a little bit of mental reset?
TVNT, you're gonna be our savior, buddy. Get in there, buddy. Reverse sweep starts now. Let's go, buddy. You can
The pressure, I hate this for every player.
Remember this.
I just hate this for any player in existence of competitive video games to be subbed in for the make or break game coming in cold. Like, that's a tall order to begin with. Rich, what do you want to see from TVNT here? I mean, it's not their fault that they just came in for one map.
No, and again, it's one of those things where, because again, we're seeing a Zen come through on that last map. It's at this point you're kind of drawing at straws. Like, you're really trying to see what is it that we can do in this moment that can actually have something stick to the wall. Like, you're constantly throwing it and you're hoping that something sticks, and at this point you have to just, they're doing what they need to, and I don't blame them for trying it to see if that might be some kind of win factor here for this.
I mean, so far we saw Twisted Minds only picking the Sen when they were on top of it all. So it was always the extra confident pick, right? When they knew they already won it, so they felt cool. This is the first time it feels like a kitchen sink kind of Zenyatta. So yeah, let's see what switch ups they can make here heading into a match point. Qadsiah just one map away from winning it all and being our EMEA Stage 2 champions. Let's see if they can close it out. Let's send it back over to Mitch and Matt. Rawr.
Rawr indeed. This is
rawr.
For Twisted Minds, man. Last opportunity to show us what they've been working on in this series. The self-proclaimed unbeatable team, the one that peaked apparently at the right time. Well, it turns out Qadsiah had yet another level to go with, and on that previous map, it was Landon that led the way, not only in the server, but also in terms of the damage done. Ridiculous showing. So it's Suravasa, but Twisted Minds stake their final claim to this series, lest they be washed away by an Qadsiah now that gets to attend an international event with their full roster.
Yeah, no, we'll see both teams kind of run out with that D.Va, so the sub does come in. It's TVNT, and TVNT, I know probably the D.Va player more often than not for this team. Obviously, I was talking about how KSA can play it, but KSA, you'd like him kind of like on more like Ram type stuff, as Quartz gets dangerously low. You're off the rip, and they're able to find the kill.
That's the opening. Exactly what they're looking for. Planet also able to keep Funny Astro fighting.
This team is just sick, man. I mean, like, what do you even talk about if you're Twisted Minds? Like during the break.
I mean, you're focusing on your win conditions here as much as possible. There has to be a way.
What are they?
Okay, so you need to try and punish checkmate. Like, you've got the kind of composition. I mean, we're mirrored here, but you have the kind of comp that can be very threatening to a sim that has to play within relatively close proximity to a pretty dangerous front line. But also, you're not playing a comp that has flank pressure, so you don't have the tools to quote-unquote counter or just run Labda down. You have to shoot better in your Sojourn category, but also, yeah, like, deal with checkmate. He's just staying alive too long.
And I also think on the last map in particular is that TP goes in towards that high ground there for Twisted Minds. I mean, just look at the health pools. Everybody on Twisted Minds are quite low, and Alcatsi in a good spot. But just like you mentioned, that's the kind of kill they need.
And Lapta was out of an awkward sight line for a timeout. He couldn't really see Twisted Minds on that low ground, so that's a big opening they were given. And finally, they're going to be able to get back into the fight. TVNT loses his mech, but I'm sure he feels like that is well worth it. Should be back fighting fit for this next engagement, but Alcat have already racked up 86% on this first flashpoint.
Yeah, and Alcatsia is going to have double support ult here. Yep, using a TP to get TVNT back to the spawn, just to swap, then get back into a new mech. I wonder, though, if you see this, though, for Alcatsia, and you have an idea that you're going to be able to get on the point, get the advantage.
I don't know how I feel about it. It is awkward for TVNT to have lost his mech here. You've given priority back to Alcatsia in terms of that positioning. Ziad gets away from the front line. He's able to stay alive now. Pate might be chipped, but he is still fighting fit. In Twisted Minds, their decision to get the D.Va back to spawn will be scrutinized. But again, the alternative is to keep the Bunny Blaster in play for what would have been a next fight. I think that self-destruct kill on TVNT's mech was the fight win.
Yes, and I like the decision to go back. And like, if you just have him in a Bunny Blaster, Baby D.Va form there, you lose that fight anyway. I mean, the only way to give yourself an opportunity there for Twisted Minds is to be able to make that type of play. For Alcatsia, UA are able to hold on to your sound barrier here. It's a huge advantage in terms of support ultimate coming into this fight. Kellex takes a shot, though, crossing the point.
Ducks down, though, gets out of the way, even looks down at the ground. Middle hitbox manipulation, potentially. He's able to walk away. That sim wall buys the time for Alcatsia. It is the prescribed response to an overclock that came in from Quartz, who, unfortunately, has not been able to get enough done this map so far. Outdone in the Sojourn category. Yubi getting pressured pretty heavily here. Dodging his sim wall quite nicely. Self-destruct will be avoided, and Landon and Checkmate fall. Eventually, Alcatsia overextend into that sim ult. They're trying to punish Yubi, which has been their game plan. This time, though, it does not pan out for them.
Twisted Minds, though, they play that quite well, right? Sound barrier pushing up there for Alcatsia. You be able to kind of juggle from side to side of his sim wall, give them an opportunity there to be able to come out with that kill, and the Ziad survives. I know the Ziad self-destruct that usually always seems to find something, and now it gives him an opportunity here for TM to take the lead on this point.
Alcatsia already knocking at the door, though, as we head to parity on this second flashpoint. Kitsune Rush in the works for both sides. Landon picked off early in that previous fight. Couple of railguns connecting with TVNT. When the Theater got on him now, here's that Kitsune Rush. Alcatsia holding onto theirs for whatever reason. They think they maybe can wait this one out, but they can't. They get chased down. Checkmate again. Kill condition, win condition satisfied for Twisted Minds.
I think also for Alcatsia, you probably know that if you drop your Kitsune Rush, they're going to drop that beat. And when they have both those support ultimates going, you're just not in a good spot. Where I think if you're Alcatsia, you'd rather just TP in and then drop this Kitsune Rush and maybe see if you can actually just kill Funny Astro or catch them off guard before they're able to get a good use of this beat.
Disrupt the shot there, just chewed through by the defense matrix. It's all about exhausting that resource from both D.Vas. Make it hard to mitigate incoming damage. Landed now with that Kitsune Rush they held onto. Alcatsia flip midway through the fight. Now to drag it out. The sound barrier could be an issue for them, though. They try and disengage away. Buy Kellex maybe a little bit of time to get there, and Ziad has held there enough. That is a big pick. That could get you there for Alcatsia. Buys them the time to get the Lucio ultimate online. And that's a disastrous turn of events for Twisted Minds. There was a real opportunity there with the beat, but they can't springboard off of it into a fight win.
I don't even think Mitch Alcatsia was even going to potentially use that beat. I think just the fact that they ended up building up to where it is just icing on top of the cake there for them, right? I think they were focused on using that Kitsune Rush, flipping the point, and then kind of kiting it and seeing what happens from there. Now with their sound barrier, you're in position to maybe even take this point.
Shows how Qadsiah are so good at this in and out D.Va composition play. Never really full committing, especially if there are ultimates ready. And now the sound barrier should give them the gumption they need to push Twisted Minds over. TVNT, though, should be able to remech here with those symbols in play. Same can be said of Ziad. Back in mech, but Checkmate's down. Again, first on the chopping block for Alcatsia. They've got to win now from a short-handed position, but the pressure on the backline is too much. Kellex and Ziad combine, take the healing off the map, and now TVNT's got to do it natty. Pressure on Yubi, but he's healthy and he's dishing damage still. Ziad finally able to claim him. Now with a little bit of health to spend here on the point, but you've got to watch out for that other D.Va in play. There is help, though. The backliners are still here for Alcatsia. They're able to buy enough time for Ziad stay alive. TVNT demected taken down. This could be it for the second flashpoint. A desperate Qadsiah Rush going to be committed to the fight, but Simple's taken down midway through. It's Court stepping up. Means to land these railguns, and he does. Ziad's dealt with. Now looking over towards Landon, clearing those turrets. Kellex low at the edge of the map, but Laptor's at least able to trade out. Landon barely stays alive. On the fringes he is. Qadsiah Rush comes in late, but Laptor's still fallen. He's dumped upon by the two remaining players of Twisted Minds. Yubi's charged up, looking very dangerous. Landon down, Suzu throwing his feet. He gets away yet again. Now the reinforcements arrive. TVNT's here. Ziad turns back up. Yubi still charged up, looking for checkmate now. TP behind him. He gets crunched on. Twisted Minds find the sim yet again, but it's a sound barrier in play here for Kellex. Shoving on towards the point. Ziad low, loses his mech, even with the sound barrier in play. And Yubi has a symbol to save for a later fight, potentially, because Twisted Minds have been able to outlast our Qadsiah here. Landon and Kellex back to back, last two standing. And it's not enough. They cannot drag this one out for our Qadsiah. We've got an even Suravasa.
I mean, that is a desperation fight win there for Twisted Minds. You lose that fight, now Qadsiah takes the point. I mean, the game is essentially over here, and we are going into a match point scenario here, and now Qadsiah is probably running away with it. But Twisted Minds, I mean, you end up using that beat early on. You have a rush, and then also the fight goes for so long, man. Twisted Minds able to build back up a lot of these ultimates leading into this one.
Checkmate, 7 deaths right now. Highest on our Qadsiah. Starting to get punished a little bit more. We talked about that win condition for TM. It's the same for both sides, of course. But Yubi's only died 5 times by comparison. And this is a great start. Early force of the self-destruct out of Ziad. TVNT still holds his. And Twisted Minds take point first.
Yeah, but can Lambda use this overclock and come up with some big kills, right? You know, if you're Qadsiah, you're behind in terms of support ultimates, and Simple had the Kitsune rush, and he just gets ripped right off the bat.
I guess we were due for a bit of Lambda magic. That is stunning. Ziad lost his mech, but Simple was out of the fight pretty early. Yubi needs to be handled, though. And all of a sudden, now Qadsiah, split as they are, have to fight back into the map. Ziad over the edge here might signal a concession in this fight for our Qadsiah. Trying to make use of Checkmate, who, for once, is actually alive as the dust settles. But he has to throw himself off the map and go for a regroup.
Yeah, this is going to get Twisted Minds. You're probably going to get up near like 80-something% before this next fight kicks off. Kitsune rushes on both sides. I think the sim wall, though, will be quite impactful here for Qadsiah with an opportunity to flip.
Still Twisted Minds, a big advantage in this fight, a big lead to work with. Kitsune Rush is likely to be mirrored in this engagement. The sim wall could be a difference maker. Here goes Ziad straight away. Tries to collapse into Twisted Minds, who TP, repositioned to the left side of the point, but Checkmate is heating up, baby. Hitting far too hard for Twisted Minds to deny.
Yeah, in the sim wall, I mean, you just can't fight that if you're a TM, right? The sim wall comes in, the Kitsune rushes on both sides, and it just gives such an advantage for Checkmate, who you mentioned, right? Checkmate just kind of getting poked down constantly throughout this one, in a very difficult situation, right? Being, dying early a lot of the times. The sim wall obviously gives him a great thing to play behind.
Double kill.
Okay, call a pause here, fair enough. Twisted Minds, though, look like they're about to take their second flashpoint. Lambda and Checkmate already falling. We're going to take a breath. We're going to take a beat here, because it looks like Twisted Minds have woken up just when it matters. This is their obviously last opportunity to choose a map in this first of 4 series. And it's just as well they've been able to get into gear here.
I think you also see, like, obviously when they have KSA in the game, right? It's a lot of like the RAM they kind of want to play, and then TVNT was the player they usually bring in to play a lot of Diva, but they haven't been forced onto it really as of late, right? KSA's been able to just play this RAM. They've been able to just kind of dominate everybody, but right now bringing in TVNT to play this Diva, looking really good. And I believe in this fight, as before we go into the pause, they got the first 2 kills. I believe Quartz ends up with 1, and they get another kill as well. So this next fight looks like it's going to be pretty good for Twisted Minds.
Just checking the lobby here, it looks like Landon had a bit of a DC. Quite an inopportune time to be booted out of the game, so that calls in.
Landon and Zoe share an internet connection, so that's.
Yeah, I hate to see it. We have a chance here at least to try and sort of circle back and talk about the damage numbers, because in the Battle of Symmetras, Yubi is considerably ahead. He has 2 less deaths. He has an extra 2,000 or so damage. For all the scrutiny that guy's gotten, he's been able to really dish it out. There was that fight previously with the Simwall. Checkmate's able to win it out, but a good disengage. Remember, the thing we like about our Qadsiah playing these Diva comps, man, is they know when to get in and get out, but the sim play complicates this. They think they're diving, they think they've got a good engagement, and all of a sudden their opponents disappear.
It's great. They look awesome on this map. The issue is they've already lost 3 maps. You would have loved to have seen, you know, maybe it's like the bringing in TVNT and playing some D.Va a little bit earlier on. I also think we talked a little about it on the last map, but maybe not as much. I think anytime this team, Twisted Minds, play simple like off of Kiri, I think it's like an L, like in the sense that like, okay, Ilios, you kind of have this like pocket Zen strat, great, and sometimes they want to bring in the bat. I feel like anytime he's not on Kiri, it's a win for the other team. And then you think about some of those games, right, as we jump back in, where simple is on you know, like a bat, for instance, and then you're also playing like D.Va, or you're playing you know, a Zen with the D.Va. It's just those scenarios are so good for Qadsiah.
Landing back in the server, but of course that flashpoint was always going over towards Twisted Minds. They started off very strong there, finding a first pick to give them the flashpoint in the first place, and now, well, they have access to it earlier on as well. Qadsiah wasting no time in getting back in here. Remember, we're looking at those Symmetra deaths, or at least lack thereof on the side of Twisted Minds. It's benefited from the longer they get, the better they do in these fights. Gonna be mirrored sound barriers now. Look at TVNT diving into the backline of Qadsiah here. And what is Labda cooking? What does he know that we don't? He's all the way out of the fight, playing very, very safe. The sim wall of Twisted Minds just forces Qadsiah to call a cancel on that engagement and give over the point to start with, but overclock gonna be popped here. Labda needs a bit of magic, needs to find a big connection. The TP play into the back line, though, no respect for Twisted Minds. They don't care if there's an overclock at already. They have Labda for breakfast.
And it's the difference, right? Coming through that TP is we see Ziad use that self-destruct. He actually takes out Funny Asher with the Bunny Blaster here. So hold on, as it looks like the point was flipped. Now it's going to go right back. But it's the difference, right? When we see them go through that the Sim TP for Twisted Minds, instead of like the Ram going through it or whatnot, they have TVNT, and he's got the defense matrix, so he's eating up some of the damage that's coming into these characters right away.
38% and counting. Qadsiah had an early touch. And Twisted Minds definitely been favored here. Okay. Another pause called now. This, as far as I understand, isn't due to a player disconnecting.
Tag pause. This tag pause.
Not a great... if you're Qadsiah, if this is Landon having issues, this is obviously not a great time for those to strike when you're trying to...
Semi-tilting. It would be semi-tilting. You know, potentially, you know, trying to close this one out as taking a look at the lobby, trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe it's like lag. Maybe it's not a lag out. Maybe it's a little lag spike, right? You're trying to deal with here, potentially.
Yeah, we are waiting on confirmation as to the cause of the pause, but bit of a momentum killer, you know, for Qadsiah, who are really trying to, again, secure their top seed heading into the mid-season championship. But 3 maps to 0 ahead in this series. Yeah. All the remaining map picks will be theirs. They will get to choose, obviously, that first ban as well. Very much favored in order to close out this series. And many of the silver bullet maps, I think, for you know, their opponents have sort of already been used up. As we head back to a map pool reset, there's going to be opportunities, of course, for Qadsiah to choose very favorable grounds.
And obviously, we're at a 3-0 scenario here for Qadsiah. I don't think that really... I mean, we've seen these teams play closer series before. I think these teams are closer than like an Qadsiah 4-0 or like a 4-1 type of game. It just seems like they're just clicking on another level. I think the bans have really worked out in their favor as well thus far. So I wouldn't really kind of say it's anything you know, pretty negative about Twisted Minds. I think it's just Qadsiah has kind of got their number today.
What we're seeing though right now is that, you know, Yubi's being very proactive with that TP usage. I think back to that previous fight where there's an overclock in play for Labda. Yubi teleports behind and goes along with TVNT, and they bring the Sojourn down. I mean, you can't wait for someone to tell you to TP. Quartz is definitely, Yubi rather, is definitely deciding when and how that sort of happens. We talked about like this sim comp, right? It's the kind of setup that a team that doesn't have great communication can't use well. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I think we saw at one point, the Ultimates tried this like earlier on the stage. Like they had a 1 week where they were like super meta pilled and tried to play this way. Obviously, they would never want to take Kevster off the Tracer, but they've tried a couple of things. But you can see the difference between a great team and an average team, I think, when those sim comps come out. It's a real equalizer.
It's an incredibly frantic way to play, right? It's a very confusing way to play, especially for some teams on the opposing side of things, right? And I think you do really need to be well coordinated to pull it off.
All right, so we are going to a quick break. Landon is trying to find his way back into the server. So this is what we've got, of course, in store for you guys. never mind.
What happened?
Told we have ourselves a game. Lane
Whoa,
ready.
hey.
That is PC. No break.
That's pretty quick.
We're jumping to the action.
big.
It was him that sort of DC'd from the lobby. So that's obviously going to be a challenge, I think, and also a bit awkward when you have a player sort of leave, but there'll be a chance here for Alcad to group up. They are behind the 8 ball on this point, though.
Yeah, I'm sure they're looking at the positive of, now they have an opportunity to group up. I think they would have rather land and stay in the game and not group up as an opportunity here for Twisted Minds, though, right? Kitsune Rush available here. Quartz with the overclock, an opportunity to get themselves on the board in terms of maps. I think they're in a great spot to do so, right? Already almost like 80% on the point.
TP up to the high ground for Qadsiah. Twisted Minds simply position themselves back off the point once more, but keep TVNT on there. So now Qadsiah got to go for it here. No choice. There's no more funny games, funny business with these TPs. They've got to commit. And here it is, overclock at the ready for Quartz, and he wants to go hyper aggressive with it. He obviously knows just on the other side of that wall, the lander was waiting for him. Lambda very, very low. Symbol comes out at a pretty good timing. Kellex holding his beat for maybe a second too long. Lambda ends up getting taken down, and Ziad did not have the durability to get back into that map. Looks like the map is pretty cooked here. Not much left at all for our Qadsiah to hang their hat on. They are going to concede Suravasa to Twisted Minds, who finally plant a flag in this series.
And Twisted Minds play a fantastic map. You bring in TVNT. I think that Diva look is a big difference maker. It's like, can they just start chaining some of these together? Unfortunate time, I think, for Landon. Also, very close, I think, at that moment when he got DC to a Kitsune Rush. So not able to have that in the fight. Albeit though, Twisted Minds was the better team on that map, right? I think regardless of what happened, some of those like big key fights early on, they were able to come out on top. So I don't think that would have like changed the results of the map, results of the series, right? We're still in this spot, I think, regardless of that happening. And Twisted Minds don't get on the board.
And it's significant, I think, because that is the composition that our Qadsiah have played their trade with, right? They have beaten our Qadsiah in a mirror match, essentially, where they've been able to make that Sim Diva comp work and seeing just a little bit more. Very good sign as the rest of the series goes. Now, these teams, when they go to fallback comps, or, when like the Diva sort of Sim setup isn't available to them, well, then they go in different directions sometimes, right? They don't exactly mirror each other outside of this setup, but a very good sign for our Qadsiah. Obviously, no small amount of disruption suffered by our Qadsiah on this map. We just can't overlook, of course, the constant DCs. They'll have a chance to rectify those and be ready to run back.
Shout out to Eric Production, Comp Ops, everybody who's keeping track of this stuff. So when Landon initially DC'd, right, and then came back, he had picked a perk that he originally didn't pick, so that's why he needed to leave the game and come back. So that second one, not really like we were kind of like in the feels bad of like, I DC'd and he had his ult. That's kind of like on Land a little bit, picking that wrong perk. Maybe he also forgot. Maybe it was a misclick. So just a little unfortunate scenario, but you can't lag out, come back in, pick all new set of perks. I mean, we can't do that here. So big shout out to everybody catching that.
And obviously not intentional from Landon, I'm quite sure. Someone whose praises we've been singing over the course of this series on Circuit Royal was definitely the top player in the lobby. And now, of course, we have burnt through our first 4 maps of this series, starting to look towards some other options here. There's a question like we're heading back to control potentially. What is it that Twisted Minds can sort of start to throw in the way? Busan, I guess, is the likely battleground.
We still have push.
I still push. Excuse me. So Runestar.
We still have push. Don't forget about push. It has its place. We saw Qadsiah the other day. I believe that was the Twisted Minds pick in this series, and that doesn't exactly go awesome. So for Qadsiah's selection, they're going to go the opposite end of the spectrum here. They're going to go Runestar, no subs. So I expect this to be another Diva head-to-head.
It's Qadsiah. Yeah, obviously that they don't want to play Qadsiah.
Yes. No. They do not play that if you're Qadsiah. Yeah, that was very good for Twisted Minds. So
Runestar is the obvious one. Still the kind of map where I think that like sometimes like the Kiriko Tracer link-ups.
Would you ban Kiri if you're Qadsiah?
Yeah, I don't mind that.
It's obviously really good for Landon, but I think it definitely throws out like what would Simple play, right? Simple probably goes and plays like okay, so interesting. So they ban a Juno, right? So forcing, I guess, a Kiri Lucio game potentially, which, I mean, that's probably where we were going to be anyway. And then Twisted Minds, they banned the queen, so potentially if there's some type of like pocket queen strat that they thought that Qadsiah had been working on, that's out.
I mean, we've seen it once, I think, throughout these playoffs, and it was Virtus Pro. It was unsuccessful ultimately. Didn't quite play out the way we're looking for on New Junk City. But I mean, this is a team where like you can have queen, you can have checkmate on the Genji, and you're in very good shape. So it's something to think about for the future. That obviously Qadsiah have scrimmed that comp at some point and found some level of success. So the Twisted Minds just really don't want to have to deal with it. I think the jury's out on just how strong that setup is. I think there's like a couple of ways that you can sort of vary it up, whether it's like Sim getting used in that setup, which would be kind of ridiculous. But, you know, obviously the Genji Queen combination, quite powerful. Simple, of course, you know, were there a Kiri ban here, could always, I guess, go to the Ana has been like another sort of pick for him here. But you're right. The Juno being taken out here denies the orbital ray, so that like strong brawl fight that the Ramatra really likes to have, and does limit your overall throughput by a pretty significant amount.
With TVNT, can you see them playing the Ram? I mean, I guess like if you're TVNT would probably like, okay, D.Va and like Orisa, right? And may like, are you? Yeah, I think that's kind of like where you would see that. Maybe like a Maga potentially, but I think it's probably just going to kind of play that D.Va in their head-to-head.
Yeah, most likely. I think that if you play the Ramatra without the Juno, it feels like it's a little bit dangerous, especially against like the more hostile like Orisa comps you can sort of pivot over to. I haven't seen TVNT play Orisa in a hot minute, honestly, but it was one of actually the first.
Well, you haven't been here in a hot minute, so I mean, of course you haven't.
Have you seen it recently?
What? No, actually they haven't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, no, KSA's been playing a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what
I just felt like it was a really good opportunity to take a shot at you for not being here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, look, listen, if you look for them,
but you missed a lot of good butter content. Me and Jake had a lot of good butter.
As far as I saw, I missed a lot of 3-0s, honestly.
You did. There were a lot of blowouts, but you know, now we kind of get here, right? This was looking like a blowout, but maybe a little bit more interesting than that, right? Because you bring in TVNT, this is something we really haven't seen where Qadsiah is like kind of going up against a mirror matchup, right? With the Divas in place. We've always seen teams try and take a little bit of a different route, but now that we get this mirror matchup, I think it's made it a little bit more interesting.
And on that previous map, the Suravasa, you could almost pinpoint the moment where Twisted Mind started to take the game over, and that was before Landon's connection issues started to take hold. They definitely were able to find themselves on even footing with Qadsiah, all else being equal. Now they're going to run it back. It's the Mei, though, for Labda. This is interesting, and obviously it's not an uncommon pick on this map, but I'm curious to see how we find success, or whether they expected to see D.Va here out of Twisted Minds.
Yeah, I just, Labda's been really good on the hit scan. I mean, you know, I said this early on, right? And they ended up making good use of the Mei, right? So I don't think it's anything against the Mei. I just think he's been really good on like the Sojourn type heroes, but clearly this is something they feel like is a valid option, a little bit of a different type of brawl look.
I guess it's fairly robust as far as comps are concerned, but Qadsiah are taking a beating. Just a lot of this early poke damage is taking them low, and now some of those defense cooldowns have been drawn out. Simple crosses the map there to make sure that Yubi can live to fight another day, but there are a lot of red crosses, white crosses rather, on the screen, and there's Funny Astro down.
Everybody's close to dead here for Twisted Minds. That's what you're trying to say. Simple, though, just turns... Okay, so Simple turns the corner, though. Just gets rid of two. Still, I don't think enough players alive besides him, right? He was trying desperately to keep TVNT in the action, but just eventually whittled out, and now we're going to see them go to the Ram. So maybe they feel like with this Mei in the mix, it's better to have this Ram. I think the Mei is definitely throwing a little bit of a wrench into things.
You might just be asking for more staying power when the fights get a little bit longer. Seems like that's where Qadsiah can find some success. They can also screen for their Symmetra with these Mei walls. Not only catch people out, but make it so it's hard to get poke damage on checkmate while he just ramps up. Here's TVNT in the direction of Qadsiah, and they perfectly disengage expertly away from this Kitsune rush.
Yep. I mean, essentially, Twisted Mind just gets space with the rush, right? They may end up getting the lead here, but it's going to be a Kitsune rush here for Qadsiah kicking things off, but checkmate just gets caught out.
Yeah, too vulnerable, right in the way of TVNT. He's able to send punch after punch in, but Blizzard here could be a problem. Ooh, that's not good. TVNT frozen solid. Great recovery there by Quartz to find that kill, but a sound barrier now means Qadsiah should be smooth sailing for the rest of this fight. That's just something that Funny Astro didn't have until too late.
Yeah, well, you will have an advantage, though, with that sound barrier here for Funny Astro coming up in this next fight. You don't even get the lead there for Twisted Mind, so the bot will go deeper here into their territory as Qadsiah will get on it. No support ults available for Qadsiah as it looks like a few players actually get caught out by the Mei wall, and it's going to be that beat here for Funny Astro. You're going to be able to kite this, though, as Ziad gets dangerously low.
Oh, Landon can't get away, though. I don't know if he realizes just how close Funny Astro was to him. And it's good Mei wall, but I think you have to manufacture a kill off of that, Matt, before Twisted Minds come back in with their beat. Now without Landon, you'll notice that healing is few and far between. It is pretty slow to get Qadsiah back in fighting shape, and so Twisted Minds are going to have themselves the lead here. Now looking to threaten their first checkpoint.
And I think for Qadsiah, like, you would have just kind of ideally like kited that, right? Once that Mei wall comes down, it's just a really nice play from Funny Astro. I think Landon doesn't realize how close he is, like you talked about.
Simwall's going to be matched here. So TVNT has confidence now to move up, continue to play that corner. Somehow Quartz has gone down. Now it's unclear where he gets picked off from. Checkmate. They've managed to section off TVNT, but that annihilation could be an issue. Ziad got back into mech, wasn't burnt down. UBTP's into the fight and isn't quite able to find a connection. And Ziad, though, dealing with Simple, who will have to give up his mech for that elimination, but it may turn out to be worth it unless UB keeps doing this. Labda not ready for him, completely blindsided by the Symmetra jumping out at him. But eventually that annihilation passes, as does the period of dominance so far for Twisted Minds. Qadsiah back in possession.
Yeah, and Twisted Minds ends up burning their annihilation there towards the end of that, where this sets up Qadsiah mid for potentially like a really good two fight kind of combination, right? I mean, you're going to end up with double support ult here and Blizzard. You're going to have the Ziad with that self-destruct, which allows him to go really deep into the backline.
Rally to my side.
Beat here. Galax has it at the ready. Okay, TP off angle taken up by UB here. Should be denied eventually. Oh, Kitsune Rush placed from that position, actually. Twisted Minds thought to fight. Galax is looking for the right moment for these beads. The connection is
it's around the corner. Yeah, oh, that stinks.
Oh, no, like that at all. Somehow UB got away through his own TP. Simple, though, didn't have the escape mechanism. Galax had to reload. Then he can go to work. UB eventually is brought down. Thankfully, that sort of whiffed sound barrier doesn't end up hurting Qadsiah too badly. Now they can threaten to even the game.
When he wall rides, he's like expecting to get like that forward momentum and just kind of like launch out, and that wall is kind of shaped oddly, like almost like an L shape, and he actually kind of clips that corner of it.
Didn't end up hurting him somehow. Very fortunate. So Qadsiah reclaim a slim lead, but this is about as frothy, about as close of a push map as you could ask for. Twisted Minds only 5 or so meters behind. Want to get back into the map. Sim TP there to threaten something that's going to be destroyed pretty quickly, and our Sim walls are going to be mirrored. Quartz has to sort of go for a flank here to work around it. Checkmate has to TP forward into a dangerous spot in order to avoid that, and Quartz barely stays alive. The beat comes in at the right time. Beautifully done. It should be an Qadsiah capitulation now as Twisted Minds are behind the 8 ball once more.
Again, all these fights just happening here towards like mid-map, right? As Ziad will get taken out of mech. He will fall. So now the bot, Twisted Minds in control, going deeper here into Qadsiah territory. They'll end up taking the lead as nobody really kind of asserting dominance in this push, right? Just back and forth, not even a ton of meterage.
No team has been able to really win consecutive team fights outside of Twisted Minds getting close to that first checkpoint. Here we go, though. Kitsune Rush going to be used by Landon. Labda low. Ziad needs some attention now as well, and that annihilation is threatening. Quartz from the backline finds a shot, but TVNT succumbs in the middle of his ultimate. Now Checkmate wants to come forward. No more threat of the Ramatra, but you still got to respect Quartz. Yubi, though, also a problem. Ziad tries to get forward and ends up getting demeched. We'll be able to climb back in and get back going as Twisted Minds calling a regroup with the loss of their tank. TVNT will be back with them soon enough.
That's tough, though. I mean, that's an opportunity, right? Where maybe you could have gotten significant progress with the bot there if you're Twisted Minds. And I mean, dude, Qadsiah playing so passive, man, right? They just kind of like back all the way up. They don't want to play here in this street. Maybe they know that Simple has this rush. It's a nice Mei wall that kind of separates them.
Okay, Kitsune Rush here. The Mei wall's a bit awkward, though. Funny Astro caught behind it by the looks of things.
That's
Simple trying to keep him standing, but there's just too many players there. That's scary. Beat ends up really paying off for Qadsiah. But the bot's walked far enough up the kill, and there's enough kills in this fight that Qadsiah are unlikely to be able to really build much off of this. Lab is healthy enough there. He can handle Yubi. icebox there just to make sure he doesn't get picked off. And now as the pendulum swings, Newton's Cradle states that Qadsiah must get the lead now.
Funny Astro, though, dying really early there and not being able to use that beat. I mean, that is a huge kill there for Qadsiah. That allows him, though, to get the lead, and it allows him to potentially back up. Landon will end up having this rush as they're so good at using this. That's going to be Quartz getting a little bit of pressure on him, and then they're going to use the beat.
Ziad completely disjointed there, Matt.
Yeah.
Symbol does come up in order to sort of theoretically help him somewhat, but Twisted Mind's sound barrier means that solo dive into the back line ends up being pretty blunted in the end. And still no checkpoint for Qadsiah. Back and forth stuff now. Twisted Minds, they're fighting for their survival in this game. Fair enough. And they're good for it.
I think Qadsiah at that time, once you end up losing Ziad, you're just trying to like play up on that bot. You're trying to just burn clock, and then you're hoping that like you come back here with a rush advantage. You're also going to be at an advantage here for Qadsiah in terms of like sound barrier and how you're building towards that. And with a minute and 40, like you don't necessarily need more bot progress, right? You just need to prevent even more coming in for TM.
Maywall, Kitsune rush committed. Ziad low. Quartz looking to try and deal with that Diva mech, and he does. Checkmate also felled. What a stunning headshot off that railgun. And now it's Twisted Minds on deck to have this checkpoint. The bot is finally close enough to concede that over. And in a close game like this, that might just be the difference maker. 1 minute, 24 seconds on the clock, and Twisted Minds have the butt scratch.
And the biggest thing there is Quartz is actually able to take out Ziad before he's actually able to get a self-destruct. He's at 99, kind of flying through the sky, and Quartz is able to connect with those shots, gets him out of mech before he's able to get that self-destruct to have a remech ability.
Back now come Qadsiah. Frustration to have given over that checkpoint now. It means it's an extra fight they likely have to win. Blizzard, annihilation for TVNT. He's able to skirt around the edges of it. That Blizzard did not connect. That's a problem for Qadsiah. Ziad's got a remake opportunity though. Something to hang your hat on for sure, but it's double support ultimates ready to go for Twisted Minds, and Funny Astro matches beats with Kellex. Simple with the rush now. Ziad working the fringes, hoping for a self-destruct kill. That is an aggressive use of that Diva ultimate. And it's going to be avoided by Twisted Minds mostly. Landon down, Quartz finds him, Yubi finally succumbs, but Twisted Minds may have done enough here. They still had TVNT standing up, but Ziad comes alive, and Checkmate's damage made TVNT soft enough to crack.
Yeah, but you see, from checkpoint on, though, Twisted Minds, they clutch up, trying to take a second consecutive map here against Qadsiah. So Qadsiah will have their Kitsune rush to work with, right? So not completely out of it just yet. They will actually have a stoppage, though, if they get to that checkpoint.
Front spawn for Twisted Minds is pretty important here. They can take a fight in middle map, but a Kitsune rush immediately out of Landon means they got to go for it. TVNT the target, frozen up, bird down instantly. Checkmate with a sim wall still to spend for the next fight, and that's got to be the game plan for Qadsiah. Make this one cost effective. And now you might have to win potentially even 2 more fights. Just 1 more might not be enough.
Yeah. No, it is going to be 2. You're going to have to win 2 more fights here for Qadsiah, because you're going to get this stoppage here, right? So you're going to be in stoppage time here for just a little bit. This is going to allow Twisted Minds to regroup. Kellex getting closer and closer to this beat, though, Mitch. I mean, that could be a massive difference maker.
That was getting dangerous there for Checkmate. He knew it too. He had the TP defensively away. But here it is, the simple... yeah, it answers the railgun entirely. The overclock there, pretty much stifled. Now the bot's getting closer. There is your golden line. 1 more fight will decide this map and whether Twisted Minds get to fight for yet another map of their own. Lambda playing it safe here. May wall available, able to section off TVNT. There's a wall in his way. He's trying to stay alive, but Blizzard now is ready for the May, and he lets it go. It was too early of a Suzu there, but look at this. Twisted Minds get out of the slowing radius. TVNT still in trouble, but Lambda goes down. Kellex's beat has to be here, but the sim wall makes it awkward. Okay, 4 players caught onto. That's what he was looking for. Now Ziad's going to fight this front line, but a Kitsune rush comes in from Funny Astro. Self-destruct from Ziad. No elimination off that whatsoever. Now looking to pressure in Yubi's direction, but he is charged up and ready to rumble. Landon, desperation. Kitsune rush. He lets the Foxes out, and Yubi now is on the wrong side of the map, but it doesn't seem to bother him. He's got the damage, and it's no touch for Qadsiah. Twisted Minds, once again, step after step, stay alive in this grand final.
Yeah, these kind of changes here for Twisted Minds are most certainly paying off as TVNT comes in. They win 2 straight maps, and now they are in this ball game, right? Playing this Diva head-to-head against Ziad and Co. So now the kind of map pool resets. This is what you were talking about a little bit before, right? Is now Qadsiah will get a selection out of all of the maps potentially to go to here, and this is This is going to shape up to be a series, man. I mean, this is the same thing that went on the other day, though, right? Qadsiah comes out, wins 2, and then Twisted Minds battles back, takes us to a final game, and they're not able to close it out. I mean, they're just one map away from trying to complete an epic reverse sweep.
Course was just electric on that map, start to finish, impeccable Sojourn performance. He ends up at about 13k damage. Now, I won't compare him to Labzik here because obviously there's a lot of May play coming out, but it was a significant boost to the rest of the team. And quite a few of those railguns coming out of nowhere really sealed the deal. I mean, I even would point to that last fight as an example of that. Yubi's continuing to deliver, and TVNT getting subbed in for these very important maps at a very important time looks comfortable. This might be the best look for Twisted Minds, and it comes at the right time.
And I think they're doing a good job on the Twisted Minds side. Like, they're getting checkmate early in a lot of these fights, right? Not allowing that sim to just kind of like ramp and take over the game. They're doing a nice job of being able to get him out of the way. And then like Ziad doesn't have that kind of like partner to go into the back line, right? So it's a much different game once you get that sim out of the mix.
See how it all plays out here towards those final moments. It's this little breakthrough. I think that is huge for Twisted Minds, getting up to that 90 meters here. And in this last fight, you can see it's a later Qadsiah rush, but both of those Twisted Minds support ultimates come online simultaneously, and it gives them enough to at least secure the pick advantage. That is a pretty immense difference in damage dealt. Now, 5k of that you can attribute to the fact that our Qadsiah are playing a May. The rest of it honestly comes from TVNT just dominating.
I mean, I think a lot of it is that the May is obviously great for sustain. It's not great for the consistent damage like a Sojourn is. So I think that's kind of the difference you're seeing here. No subs, TVNT staying in the game, trying to run them back all the way up as we'll see what Qadsiah's map pick, Mitch, is going to be New Junk City. A really good brawl type of a map here. I mean, we're already through a lot of bans. I mean, if I'm Qadsiah, I consider the Kiri ban. Like, Simple's so good on the hero. I think if you get rid of the Kiri and you end up in a world where you're playing like Bap Lucio, I think that's one where Qadsiah probably has an advantage, right? With Landon on the Bap, being able to play that. Simple is just too nasty on this Kiri.
It's hard to imagine, though, that Landon is disadvantaged in a Kiri mirror.
I don't think he is. I just think that the gap between Simple's Kiri and maybe some of his other heroes are a little bit big.
I think this game goes very differently on Runasapi if Labda doesn't miss his 2 last blizzards on the Ramatra. Neither of those 2 blizzards were able to stop him at all. There is obviously a Suzu that buys you like the window to get out of there. So it's pretty clutch. Like, it's heads up play from Simple to enable TVNT to walk away. But that kind of invalidates the May pick. Makes you feel like that you might have been better just going for a Sojourn to try and, you know, equalize in terms of the damage. So I think that one hurts. And it's really just an execution issue on the side of Qadsiah. Heading to a map like this, we already saw the Queen banned. I was banned what? Runasapi. Do we see Qadsiah try and run it like VP and get the Queen in here?
I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see the Queen. I think the Queen is something that maybe is a little bit niche. And then also the Queen, I mean, maybe we're just too late in the game here, with the new patch to really kind of see the benefits of it, where maybe it's something at like the mid-season championship we potentially could see come into play. So Qadsiah gets the first ban. So Qadsiah with the first ban will get rid of the Alari, and then Twisted Minds with the second ban will get rid of. Okay, so never. Wait. So, but it is the Qadsiah map pick. So, did they give them first ban? Is that kind of what happened here?
Possibly. I'd be surprised, but I guess when we get to this point now, where so many of these bans have already been sort of played out, it's possible that Qadsiah weren't really interested in making a protect ban of their own. But I don't know. I think there should be some discussion over like what the upside is to banning second, considering that you can't protect ban.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen teams do it at times where they kind of forfeit that first ban. It is really rare. like I can think of 2 probably instances throughout EMEA this stage we've seen it. Like it's not something teams go to often. Maybe you're like, okay, give them first ban to try and like telegraph what they're trying to do. So they did defer the ban here. So and maybe it's to try and telegraph something, right? Hey, you know, if they banned this, we have a good idea they're doing, you know, this, and then we can come up with a different ban strategy around it. I'm surprised Qadsiah would ban the sim, right? I mean, the sim has been like their bread and butter. Maybe they feel like though that getting checkmate, like we were talking about checkmate getting picked off a decent amount. Maybe it's something like, okay, well, let's get checkmate like on Tracer, let's get him on Genji, something a little bit different.
Okay, I mean, in fairness, Yubi's been frying these last couple of maps, but it's not as if he looks worse on the Tracer.
Bro, Yubi was frying yesterday on Tracer.
On the Kiri. Yeah, Kiri, I mean, checkmate, this time at least we'll have Landon to potentially link up with him if they want to play that sort of side skirmish approach. Mirrored comps yet again, folks. It's going to be Sojourn, Tracer for both these sides. Qadsiah getting a little nervous here. Twisted Minds breathing down their neck, threatening a reverse sweep against the team that really has been an undisputed front runner in the EMEA all stage long. New Junk City is going to go down. It's going to be TVNT already making a push here. And Labda spotted low. Quartz picking up where he left off.
And the other day, if you remember back, obviously it's KSA in for TVNT, but they play a comp like this, and they were dominant on Qadsiah. I mean, think about like when Yubi was going like head-to-head against Checkmate in the Tracer battle, like Yubi was coming out on top in a significant portion of those duels. And dude, of course, it's hitting like those are going to Game 7.
I want to point out that they weren't playing Kiri on that Qadsiah map. So Checkmate was literally 1v2 on a lot of those flank engagements. But in situations where like it just so happened that Yubi was fighting alone, he was still coming out on top. This guy has become much more than just a Sim 1 trick. I think that's so safe to say at this point, but Tracer's having a rough run out here. My God, these long-range rails. Absurdity from Labda creates an opening now for Qadsiah, and not a moment too soon, might I add. Already 55% of the docket for Twisted Minds on this first flashpoint.
I love that end courts, right? Just opening things up for their team. But dude, TVNT has looked really good since he's come in. Going after some of those backliners, right? This time he's able to deal with a Landon, but Ziad takes out Simple on the other end. It is a flip though, so Twisted Minds is in control of the point at the moment.
And the threat of winning this fight out. Looks like Quartz was able to get in there and just beat Labda. Take the point. Jeez, at an individual level. This guy's really taking the game into his own hands.
This one looks like look at the position Quartz is in up on that high ground with the overclock to work with here, as it'll be Yui versus Checkmate here on the point, as Checkmate just making sure we're going to trigger OT.
A touch on the point. Going to take more than that though. Kitsune rush now a little bit later from Landon, and Labda's able to make use of it. Sound barrier here. Checkmate a long way from the action. Oh, buddy. That's 4 health. Get the flip, and honestly, the rest of Qadsiah are fighting very well considering Twisted Minds are trying to dive them. Eventually, they'll have to give up the ghost, but there's still a flip here. Qadsiah have confidence about fighting with the rest of Twisted Minds. A bit of a 3v3 over there, but they now need to double back. Both teams in disarray need to regroup.
Yeah, but Mitch, Twisted Minds ends up using their beat there, Funny Astros, and it only connects with like 3 players, and Kellex is going to have this beat here to be able to use over the top of the point, because Twisted Minds, I mean, they just have almost everything else to work with. Nice defense matrix there, just trying to keep Kellex up.
Overclock from Quartz. Labda has one of his own though, when TVNT's feeling the brunt of it. Self-destruct. Look at this play. Simple was getting the heck out of dodge. Swift steps back to safety. And it looks like Ciaz found something. He's chasing across the map. Simple eventually goes down. He used that swift step and still got brought to heel. Now Qadsiah. This is a good look. Much the same way they started out Suravasa. They're advantaged here. Quartz needs to go though, that's for sure. TVNT start to cut a swathe through the backline of Qadsiah, but it's too little too late for Twisted Minds. Should be an Qadsiah take now. And it's just Yubi to try and keep it going. Simple's turned up yet again. They can't fight for it. 1-0 to Qad.
An extremely competitive though first point here, as Simple will take out Checkmate TP out to the rest of TM and get away, but as close as a first point can be. On the rotation here though, Mitch, you're going to have this big advantage for this next fight with that Kitsune rush.
Simple going to have the one off the rip. Twisted Minds award a priority based on the random chance of the point spawn. Disrupt the shot here. Yubi traverses it to find a stick on Ziad. That's a self-destruct required here. And that's enough for Twisted Minds. They're not going to pressure it. They go to the point. They'll be there to start the cap. And they got the Diva ultimate out of Ziad. Can't complain about it. Now checkmate with a pulse. It's Labda. Okay. Whoa. Society, if Labda didn't play May, folks, I tell you what. Another great pick. Again, it's on Yubi. It's a headshot, insta-kill. Now he's going to play it safe for the time being. And look at his team keeping him in this. There's not much TVNT can do. It really just rattles the cage of Labda. But that's it.
Another 3-player beat here for Twisted Minds. They want to continue to try and fight this. Maybe they have players coming off of the spawn, but now for Qadsiah, you're going to have this pulse bomb able to use here if you need, but Bunny Astra will fall. Looks like they're just trying to gain more percentage on the objective here off of the back of this sound barrier, right? Keep some of the players up, just kind of keep staggering out onto the point. Quartz does get Ziad though, so it might be a little bit interesting.
Good stall from TVNT, though. Able to get back in his mech behind that self-destruct, and that's because Qadsiah lose there at the start of this fight. Again, we're at 60% for Twisted Minds off one fight. They've got to be happy with it.
I mean, do you view that as a win? Like, you know, you have a 3-player beat that essentially lets you stay alive. I know, keep just kind of rattling players onto the point, probably gain another, like, 40%. I kind of feel like it might be a little bit valuable.
All right. Pulse there in the back pocket for checkmate, but Labda wants to force the issue. Perhaps a little too far. Good Suzu. That's going to allow him to double back now. That's an overclock though that's really just used to threaten Twisted Minds. Qadsiah build up a pretty decent bank of ultimates, and they're getting close to that Qadsiah rush yet again. These picks happening 5 or more seconds apart are really beneficial for them.
And it's got to be tilting. I mean, Yubi dies at the hands of Labda, then Yubi dies at the hands of checkmate as making his life very difficult here onto the Tracer. And dude, you're a fight away. Oh, that is a railgun shot, and then simple finishing off checkmate. I mean, that is huge.
Just as well, Landon's been able to chime in on the damage front himself, Matt. That's Tracer down for both sides. Caught under scrutiny, has to duck back. Tough to contest. He's going to go for a... Feels like a bit of a desperate play there towards that high ground. TVNT has to contest. He's got no choice. Here's the sound barrier. Yubi, of course, still on respawn. Not about to benefit from it. Qadsiah, sound barrier's in play, but TVNT has lost most of his now. It's getting dire for him. No remake opportunity for him. Checkmate ensures he'll be ejected. And now a pulse bomb in Simple's direction, perhaps, but he doesn't want to dice with the Suzu. He'll get it done the old-fashioned way. A little bit of argy-bargy here for checkmate as he runs through Twisted Minds. That's 2-0. Qadsiah threatening to end the series on this next flashpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, the sim ban, maybe a little bit surprising there for Qadsiah with how good they have used that hero throughout all of stage 2, but honestly, Twisted Minds started to kind of get their number a little bit. Now that Labda is back on the Sojourn, and then you get checkmate here, kind of rolling on the Tracer. It's given them a big advantage, and look at this. They're going to get to this point first and control the high ground.
Ziad has only died twice to TVNT's 4. Kellex 1 death. Managing to avoid a lot of this Tracer pressure. Tough job for Yubi here. Only 4 eliminations on Tracer for this map so far, to checkmate's 14. Starting to see a little bit of a gap emerge there, and it's got to be an issue. That is a stick. Checkmate, just as you speak of the devil, he does appear. Funny Astro, though, sends him back to the 7th circle. Self-destruct for a remake there for TVNT, but it doesn't give much ability for Twisted Minds in that window to fight for the point. But back with a vengeance is TVNT. Now Labda, though, eyes for the Diva only, stripping away that health pool, forcing TVNT to play that much more passively. Still no full cap here. Qadsiah now really focused on trying to clear Twisted Minds off and not leave anything up to chance. They'll have their D-Mech. Landon will save this Qadsiah rush for a later fight. Very positive developments here. Now with the beat, rush straight away from Landon. He doesn't want to leave anything to chance. Like I mentioned, this is Qadsiah trying to convert, trying to end the series. TVNT finally goes down. That was Astro's beat that ends up coming out with nothing. Simple will have to save his rush for a later fight. The only silver lining here for Twisted Minds is that Alcat have only just capped the point.
Yes, but outside of that, not much, right? Because Kellex is going to hold on to his sound barrier. And you see when those Qadsiah rush uses by Landon, he just turns, and all of the healing there is going to Labda and Suzu there, just trying to keep him alive with all of that pressure coming through from Twisted Minds. They're able to keep that Sojourn up, and that's the biggest difference.
Can Quartz keep Twisted Minds in this game? Here's Overclock. Forced back by the disruptor shot. Quite annoying for Quartz. Does no longer have any good sightlines to work with. Fortunately, Ziad brings the party to him. Self-destruct. Remake. He'll be back in the fight, but in the meantime, Twisted Minds are trying to make use of his absence. Diving on this backline. Landon in order to use that swift strike, or rather swift step. And that's stunning. A small opening, a keyhole, in fact, for Twisted Minds to punish And Ziad was left on the outside looking in.
And that's a sound barrier gone for Qadsiah. This is quite massive here for Twisted Minds. Checkmate, he'll be the last one. He's just trying to extend this for as long as possible. It'll be 87% there for Qadsiah. But Twisted Minds, the overclock from Quartz gets Kellex use that sound barrier early, and they try and make a play with Qadsiah. They try and see Ziad all the way in on top of Quartz. They're not able to finish him off, and that allows them to just push on forward once Ziad gets DMAC.
Checkmate under pressure. Little recall out. He's fine. Sees you coming his way.
Players chasing him, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, he's tied him up for a while. This has allowed Qadsiah to try and set up for a high ground play. 45% and counting now. Beat at the ready for Funny Astro. It's going to be crucial. TVNT a little bit low on the low ground. Gets that beat, though, from up on high. Qadsiah will try and disengage, but getting Ziad out is going to be quite the struggle. Landon had to swift step forward in order to try and save him. It was a forlorn hope. Quartz, though, hang on. Caught out by Checkmate. Big pulse bomb. Qadsiah, without a Diva mech, have to kind of go for it. Labdo with plenty of damage.
Checkmate with two.
He's forced to tip the king while Chadmate tips the Fedora. That is devastating, and it might be all over. What a way to take down the Tracer. And Qadsiah, everything coming up in their favor. A remake, though, for TVNT, and he got Landon with that animation. A little bit sloppy there from Landon, but Qadsiah have that point control, and now they're ready to close the deal. That is that, folks. Qadsiah closed the book on this chapter in their rivalry with Twisted Minds. Take that #1 spot in EMEA that rightfully was theirs.
And Qadsiah, I mean, look, they were so good throughout all of Stage 2. Would have felt a little odd if they did not finish it off here in the playoffs, and they get it done against Twisted Minds. But also huge props for Twisted Minds to be able to kind of battle back throughout this series, right? They kind of fall behind the other day. They battle all the way back to a Game 5. They're almost able to get us to a Game 7 today. It's just these slow starts against Qadsiah that are biting them.
Something I talked about in Suravasa, when it came to matching the Sojourn sim play, Twisted Minds were not only able to stand on even footing with Qadsiah, they beat them solidly and fairly on that Suravasa map. But we went to New Junk City. When Sim was out of the picture, banned out by Qadsiah, Yubi had to go and play the Tracer. And Checkmate has a lot more eliminations and almost double the damage. He is able to do the most. A far cry from what we saw on Qadsiah, where Yubi was frankly dominating. Unfortunately, he just couldn't step up to that same level of form that he had yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm Qadsiah, I'm retiring the May. You know, I'm putting that one, putting that one back. Yeah, putting that one back in the shed, not bringing the May back out. And I mean, look, Labda looks so good on the Sojourn. I think this kind of also is a little bit of a bounce back game for Checkmate on the Tracer, right? The other day, Yubi was getting the better of him on Qadsiah, but today the tides definitely turned in that battle as Checkmate stepped up in a huge way here to be able to help Qadsiah get the finish. And I think we talked a little bit about it, right? You defer that first ban, you maybe catch them off a little bit off guard, right? Because let's say Qadsiah, you ban that sim first, maybe there's a more impactful ban that we see come out from Twisted Minds. But you know, it is Qadsiah who ends up coming out on top in the end. It looks like we lost you there.
Yeah,
hey.
come on.
Hey, you know what? Let's go to the desk. Great game for Qadsiah winning the stage playoffs here in EMEA.
Dude, there's no way. Dude, what? Where did Bro go? Where did Bro go?
So, yeah, where did not only he go, Zoe's gone, you're in. We just have a whole bunch of things that are going all over the place right now, man.
Yeah. Yep, Zoe, internet provider decided it was time to go back to dial-up with a 0.09 megabits per second upload speed. So I'm going to stand in for Sove just for a brief moment before we go to NA. Thank you guys. Thank you. It was great. It's great to be here. An insane series from Qadsiah. A perfect stage, going 7-0, and then taking the finals 4-2. What stood out for you most in that series?
Wow.
So, Rich.
I mean, do you want to kick us off, Rich? Do you want to kick us off? Just
I mean, the first thing I'll kind of say is, again, we had TMNT come in because it was one of those moments where you just had to do something. Nothing wasn't working. Something needed to change, and that was the factor that changed. And I think that we did get to see, granted, a few of the DC dynamics with Landon. I still thought that being able to bring this sub in, there was substantial difference to the methodology behind how they were playing, and it really started to snowball in the right direction. And they were playing as a different cohesive unit to really counteract what Qadsiah was bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think the defensive-minded orientation for Twisted Minds was really impressive the last couple of maps, how they played so reactive to Qadsiah and disengaged from some of these teleporters coming in from checkmate and then re-engaged with some nice sunbursts from Funny Astro and those kind of moments. But I do think there are two asterisks to put out there. The first one, of course, being Landon with his issues on Suravasa. They lost Landon in pivotal moments. First up, of course, when Qadsiah were in control of one of the flashpoints, and then you lose your flexible player. It's, of course, it had some level of impact, and then the second time around, of course, there's more to that than a simple internet issue, but they lost Landon with his Kitsune Rush, and then as well, going on to Runasapi as well, which was a great map for Twisted Minds, but the Ramatra pushing some of that card presence, it was just more impactful than the May we saw coming out from Qadsiah as well. And obviously it came down to the absolute wire here. Some insane overtime fights in this entire series, back and forth on Suravasa 2. Like, it comes down to the very small details, and Qadsiah, they were just a superior team throughout.
What do you think of the deferral of bans? Because this happened in NA yesterday, and it's happened obviously a little bit here as well.
That was interesting. I mean, go ahead, Johnny.
I honestly don't know what to think about it. Like, I honestly don't have the theory like why they deferred the ban on New Junk City. To be honest with you, like I'm very interested to hear like about their theory, because we've had a few teams defer. Yesterday, of course, we had GK who deferred it twice in the upper bracket final. I don't know about that, but there are a few teams who's actually applied some logic to deferring bans in the first place. So I don't know what they were cooking, but I'm really interested to see what their theory was.
See, you want to try and go down the theory route. For me, I'm thinking it's like, we're just gonna mind games you. Like, that's what it is. It's like, no. How about you just take it? Like, that's fine. Just go right ahead.
Well, I mean, we might as well hear it from the players, I suppose. Let's get a couple of players from Qadsiah to jump in and talk with us through that. The 4-2 grand final. And like you said, Johnny, down to the wire with almost every single OT fight as well going the distance. Also, a question I did want to ask, hey, is this good signs for an international showing for this team?